Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the PlayVS Cup featuring Fortnite Trios event. My name is Life with Panda. Joining me here today is Unamused Bryson. We're going to be bringing you all the action. Are you excited, Bryson?
Yeah, excited to say the least, Panda. You know, Trios is one of the best game modes out there. We all know that. I mean, we've had Trios all year this year, and it just never gets old. So I'm really excited just to see some of the action that we're going to get to watch today.
Yeah, I definitely agree. There's going to be some great action. You already know there's going to be some big names competing at the top, which I'm super excited to see. All of that's going to unfold here with you all live at home. We appreciate you all tuning in to the events. You know, yesterday we just got done with the solos. Now it is time to focus on the trio game mode. Again, a bit of a different scene, of course, but you may even see some familiar faces have made their way here. And for those of you at home that don't know, you had to qualify to get to this point. We took top 8 East and West from the fall 2020 season, top 8 East and West from the spring 2021 season, put them all in this cup, and now they are competing together. But you may be wondering, what's the format here? How are the points going to be counted here in today's competition? Well, fear not, we're going to bring you that format right now. Looking at the screen, you will see there is an elimination cap of 20. And you know in trios, that is very easy to reach. Now, this is going to be a tougher lobby, so I doubt that we're going to see too many 20 eliminations on the board, but we will still see them nonetheless. Now, 2 points per elimination is there. You got points per each placement between 21st and 30th. 6th and 20th is 2 points each placement. 2nd through 5th is 3 points each placement. And then that sweet victory royale is going to be an additional 5 points. Now, I got to say this, right? The scoring format for this is great, but the scoring format for yesterday was incredible as well. That's why I want to go over the leaderboards from yesterday real quick and talk about the players that came out on top, because there were some great players yesterday. We saw the consistency come out of FluCam with almost it looks like almost 150 point lead over second place. That is drastic, and that just kind of speaks to the point format in that tournament. Second place was Nerfface. You had Star in third, Defiable fourth, Noel in fifth, Seabear in sixth, Consolebot in seventh, Kenzo in eighth, Patriot in ninth, and Igna in 10th. So great performances that we got to see. And yesterday's format too was 4 points per elimination, so it definitely was a little bit different. Now you look, the difference between 20th and 10th was not very large. Less than 100 points differed the two placements, but still, trajectory wise, it put Cloutsy down there in 20th because he was off by just a few points, and that's really the difference there in solos, folks. But we are going to see a very different setup here today because these trios are going to be competing for some prizes. And I got to say, this is some good stuff here. If you don't know, 7th through 12th is going to walk away with $1,000 per player. 4th through 6th is going to walk away with $1,250 per player. Third place is going to walk away with $1,500 per player. Second place is going to walk away with $1,750 per player. And first place is going to be a whopping $2,000 per player. This is a great, huge prizing opportunity for these players. But you may be wondering, who's competing? What are the players that we're going to see today? Well, let's take a look at this player list. Bryson, look at these names. We got Spooky, Cammy, Saiku. You have Edgar, Anthony T, CR7. You got Grayson, Smitty, Eric, and so many more.
Yeah, Panda, there's a lot of big names today that we're going to be able to watch. You know, looking at the Fortnite pro scene, a lot of these players are in that high school level. So a lot of these players that we see, you know, on Twitch, on Twitter, that are constant Fortnite pros talking, we are going to see some of those today. And you know what? That's going to really change up the gameplay here, especially from what we watched yesterday with solos. Trios is going to be completely different. There's way more depending on yourself in trios because you have to have a whole team. You have to have your own specific role within that team, okay? And so all these players, they have to find the right teammates, the right people that can, you know, certify those exact roles that they're playing with as a team for trios. So I'm just really pumped to see, you know, what some of these players do. And we even have names like Who Fishy, who also plays for, you know, Optimal Ambition, and Narwhal, and just lots of players here today that I don't think it's going to be much of a boring tournament whatsoever, Panda.
Yeah, this is going to be another day of just straight action. And if you don't know, for those at home, Narwhal, Kaz, and Hoofishy, all players that just competed in the grand finals of FNCS. So we get to see them compete here on another big stage within the same season. Looking at this last page, though, there are still incredible names. Pencil Bob did extremely well. Just a few weeks ago in the trio grand finals, you have Nate, Blizzy, and Jaden back from that competition as well. Nevify, another big name working there with JC and that team. I am going to be impressed. This is a really stacked setup here for this competition, and it's going to be, if not as good as the solo performances, it could potentially be better. And I'm excited to be bringing all that action here with you, Bryson. But one thing I'm going to have to talk about before we get in, we talked about it a little bit yesterday, but what do we think is going to be the zones? What are the zones going to be like here in these first few games? Because we had some crazy zones in the first 3 games of yesterday.
Yeah, Panda. We actually had a lot of zones yesterday that were mountain zones. And mountain zones are arguably one of the hardest zones to play around, especially with how sometimes the zone might pull right up the mountain. So if you're playing on high ground, you have an automatic win there pretty much, because it's so hard for those other players that are below the mountain to make themselves up. So if we have a lot of games like that today, then it's going to be real interesting to see, how each of these teams strategically play this.
Yeah, absolutely. But guess what? I definitely see these zones playing out differently today. I definitely see some elevation changes, but it's time to dive into the action here. In game number 1, you see Orag and Mint 1X, 2 players that we got to see a little bit of action from just a few weeks ago, now competing here in the PlayVS Cup for this big prizing.
Yeah, and it looks like we're going to be starting out with a little bit of over here with the flush area. We have the Hydro Dam, that whole the swamp area, Slurpy Swamp area. We're seeing a little bit of a split drop as everybody's going around. There's a lot to play around with, in this area. There's so much health. So I would arguably say, this is one of the more vital spots that you can land at, Panda, because there's so much material, there's so much health, and just seeing, how these players utilize this is going to really protect them end game, especially when they're able to find all of their health naturally here, and they don't really have to utilize too much of the items that they find, because they're going to be able to hold those for the end game. Either way, though, there is still a lot in this area that is really easy to play around with, specifically with some of the NPCs. You have the Flush NPC that gives a spaz to people, the purple epic shotgun. Either way, Panda, this is a pretty good spot to be landing at, and especially to have it by yourself.
Yeah, I mean, look, when you're uncontested, it obviously is going to give you an advantage in its own, right? Being able to have a POI to yourself, to be able to loot comfortably, rotate out, and place yourself where you need to be, that's so important in trios. But we haven't seen it happen too often. You see the tale of Clicks versus Sprite in those 2 trios. You've seen it happen time and time again here with trios contesting one another. So it's going to be interesting, to say the least. However, this is going to be big. This is going to be a big day here for these players, because look, you Slurpy Swamp here for Fabled Taco, Pencil Bob, and Truth. They have it uncontested, so this should be a pretty solid day for them.
Oh, yeah, solid to say the least. I mean, really, if you think about it, it's so wild how in these tournaments, everybody kind of has their own drops. You don't see as many split drops as usual. Now, that being said, that doesn't mean there aren't split drops. Split drops are there, and there will be players that will go down at the beginning of the game. You will see eliminations happen right away, but I also think, the reason why we see such stacked end games is because a lot of these players know not to mess around with other players' drops. They stay where they're at, and they focus on getting to that end game. And I think that's something that just shows how strategic the game of Fortnite really is. It's not just some simple battle royale. No, these players have a game plan every single game, Panda, and they are ready to execute that when the time comes.
Yeah, and these players, they've gotten to this point because they know how to execute on those game plans. So I'm excited to see how that's going to unfold here, especially going towards the end game. But look, this has been an incredible season, just a few days away from being completed. Bryson, what are you expecting here in the new season? I've seen some of the teasers talking about they're coming, and and stuff like that. Could we be seeing aliens here in season 7?
You know, that's what it's really starting to look like, which is something that I'm really excited about. You know, Fortnite has done such an awesome job with keeping things fresh. You know, we've had a Marvel season, which was really cool to see all of, you know, our favorite Marvel characters on the map. We've had a season that's based around like a type of post-apocalyptic with the water taking over everything, and just so many differences here, so many different things that Fortnite likes to throw in. You really never know what to expect, and you know what? They always deliver something fun. But looks like we're going to see possibly one of our first engagements here as JC is able to get that cone, gets a quick shot up. Not enough though to crack, and it looks like the rest of the team is going to be pushing around on him. He's got to get his team up to him fast because I think he's alone for just a moment right here.
Yeah, they're definitely attempting to take JC off of his ledge here because he is by himself. It does look like Ty was able to get up to him fairly quickly, but Nevify still might be in the distance. This is kind of the dangers of dropping split from the rest of your team. And ultimately, this team realizes that they may have had an opportunity, but that opportunity is gone. Both teams are present here and accounted for in this fight. And it actually looks like JC, Ty, and Nevify might have an advantage because you see Young over there in the distance. He's not with his team. He's still just trying to take shots from a distance. And ultimately, Nevify, JC, and Ty, they're on top of this team.
Yeah, big time, you know, and these are games, you know, you want to be able to stay together, and I think JC knew he was in kind of a difficult spot there for a moment being alone, but to say the least, his teammates made it over, and that was really big for him. Now it looks like there's really just Alex left by himself, trying to get away, trying to still hold his game, but it was not enough as they were able to trio wipe just to start off at Shark. Now they got this whole entire area, Shark, Coral Castle, all to themselves. That's a lot of loot to play around with, but with the zone, they still gotta make sure they're watching where they're at and they know when they need to rotate.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just an example of how engagements should take place at this stage in the game. They need to be quick. They need to be feisty, and you need to be sure that you can walk away with the W in that engagement. That team thought that they were creeping up on JC by himself, but JC, Ty, and Nevify are an incredible trio. These players know exactly how to handle that split drop and take care of business when problems seem to arise. Now, though, we focus on Fnatic and Eden. Eden being one of the solo players we watched yesterday, now competing with his trio here in Colossal Crops. And it looks like there might be a bit of a fight here on the distance. You see Secretly just off in the distance with his teammates to the right. So Fnatic just trying to get any tags that he can here early on, just in case Storm Surge becomes a factor.
Yeah, and we're looking at a Colossal Crop share right here, which Colossal Crops is an interesting place for teams to land, especially in this meta being so heavy on you're wanting to hit metal, especially cars and stuff, because you want to get those mechanical parts to be able to upgrade your guns, but you don't really find any of that around Colossal. But you do find it right next to it at, you know, the little Risky Reels area. But that being said, a lot of people will go to Risky and a lot of people go to Colossal. So sometimes it's hard to really be able to find those materials that you need at Colossal. So it can be a tough place to drop if you are contested. Now, we're watching a little bit of a Fast and Furious action chase right here as they're trying to get those guys as they drive away, but they weren't able to. They might have been able to get a few picks off Panda. Either way, both teams are on their way now, separate ways, and they're looking for an end game.
Yeah, they definitely are looking for an end game because that's where all the points are really going to come up. You have to remember, in a format like this, placement is key. You need to be focused on making your way through the game, not worrying about these early to mid-game engagements, and focusing all your energy in the later part of the game. That's why the resources that you collect throughout this are going to be so important. And the last thing you want to do is waste those resources early.
Yeah, exactly, Panda. Now, we're looking back over here at Misty. Misty is definitely a drop that if you're able to get that to yourselves, you are going to be set for the rest of the game. And it looks like John, Death, and Fades, this is exactly what they're able to do. They were able to find the spot exactly for themselves. And that's going to really set them up here because there is so much loot in this spot. And it's very interesting, too, to see their differences in their loadout. Like we had, you know, Death was sporting the infantry rifle. Well, it looks like both Death and John have that purple epic shotgun. So when they get into an engagement with another team, I would hate to be on the receiving end of that because these guys, they're going to dominate probably.
Yeah, I definitely think they have the potential to dominate. They were one of the top teams there in the trio event just a few weeks ago. And so I see a similar result here in today's tournament. Now, though, the focus here is on EG, Mex, Summy, and Flixie. This trio does look like they have a bit of an advantage here on a Fenerican team. And again, we watched Feneric, Eden, and Dwin do well early on, but now it looks like they're in a tough spot. I'm not sure what the desire to put themselves on the Spire like this was, but they ultimately do not have the high ground advantage here, to say the least. As long as they hold this position, though, they should be all right as these other teams begin to rotate. And I'm going to ask you this, Bryson. What do you think of the Spire as a POI? Personally, I think it's been kind of crazy to land at the Spire. There's so many little crevices that people kind of hide in, and then obviously the NPC is tough to go up against. But what do you think of the Spire?
You know what? It's not my favorite place to land, that's for sure. And it's not my favorite place to get caught up in mid-game. Because like you said, it's very easy for people to hide there. Now, the Spire's definitely been an interesting POI throughout the season, considering that you can actually get mythical boots from there, which we really don't see anymore throughout these seasons. I really have not seen a lot of pros playing with those boots. And for people at home that don't really play Fortnite, to be able to get these boots that make you fly or hop around, you have to go to different parts of the map, retrieve an item, and bring it back to the Spire, which I think in competitive is just a little too much. But Panda, I'm excited to see what this next season does, because obviously the Spire is playing a big part in this story, considering it has some type of energy that is exerting throughout the map.
Yeah, that's right. The foundation is locked into that sphere, and hopefully we'll find out what's going on with him, how he's been doing the last couple months here in just a few days. Now, though, Weeping Woods, that's a POI that I gotta say I love on the map. Now, of course, every season a POI kind of gets put on the chopping block. What POIs do you think, Bryson, that you may see end up on the chopping block here in Season 7?
You know what? I think there could be a lot of different ones. I know there was talks of an alien ship going around the Risky Reels area, which I know isn't a direct POI, but just that area right now, we might see a change. And I think we're probably going to see a big change in the new POIs that we got from this season, because like right now we're in the Bony Burbs, and the Bony Burbs is really playing, a part in this prehistoric era that we're seeing in Fortnite. And I don't really think that's going to be here when we get into it. And I don't know. I'm not totally sure what is going to happen, but I think it's safe to say that we're going to see some eliminations of the prehistoric areas, the primal weapons, just all of that, which I think could possibly be a nice little thing. It's nice to change up the flow here and there.
Yeah, it definitely is nice to change it up, and I'm super excited to see what those changes are going to be. Regardless, though, one change I'm not going to miss is the llamas, man. Hey, listen, if you know about those llamas and you know about the players and the advantages that those llamas have for the players, it's pretty significant. I got to say that, man. Listen, if you aren't out there trying to get this llama, what are you doing? This is going to set you up for success here. And that's why you see players like John here still creeping around. You never know. That llama could be in his near future as another team ends up pushing up just on the other side of him. Smart on them, though, to break that ramp. They don't want to give away any kind of sign that they're in this bush. But no, as I say that, another team notices that they are there and they start taking shots, but it does not look like they're going to be able to convert on anything at this time.
Yeah, and I think the fact that they didn't hit any of their shots, and that John, Death, and Fades were very smart about that engagement, they didn't shoot back, that made the other team kind of back off and think, maybe they're not in this bush, and now they're looking in a different spot. Let's get over to Dave, Nico, and Zeno. This is a team we haven't really watched yet today, and from my knowledge, these guys are pretty advanced when it comes to the Fortnite just gameplay. They have great mechanics. They know how to play together, and that's exactly why we're seeing them in a spot right now in this finals. And that's really why we're seeing all these teams. Every team here today is not going to slack. Everybody here has a lot of skill, and I think that's what's really going to ultimately make today such an exciting and memorable Fortnite tournament.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you. The potential in today's tournament is endless. There are so many players clamoring for the opportunity to walk away with some of this prize money. And look, there's quite a bit of it up for grabs as Dave, Zeno, and Nico continue to hold the high ground here in Bony Burbs. What did you think of Bony as a POI this season? Because Bony is one of the new spots and potentially one of those spots to be going here in just a week. So what did you think of it while it was here?
You know what? I thought it was somewhat underwhelming. The fact that it really went from, the brand new Tilted Towers that was brought in to this Bony Burbs, it really kind of died out. You noticed a lot of the player base stopped going there when in the season with the Sand, everybody was dropping the new Tilted. So regardless, I'm not going to be too upset if it goes, but I still don't think it's a terrible POI. I still think you can find a lot of use out of it if you are smart and you know the drop. And that's really what Fortnite is you just have to know your drop, and you're ultimately going to be successful in that case if you do.
Yeah, it's all about being knowledgeable no matter where you go. And that's why you see people like NT Edge and It's Your Easy Kid do well. They know how to rotate here in this space because they've done it. They've been experiencing this throughout the entire season, so they're able to rotate effectively here into this next zone. But looking at the players that are close by, we have some great teams effectively using the space that they have. You do see, though, Fades, Death, and John there over in the distance. They do have a team just next to them, but it looks like, fortunately for them, that team's actually going to end up focusing It's Your Easy Kid, Edge, and Z1. So this is going to be interesting to say the least, as shots are going to come out. Storm Surge is always in the back of the mind of these players, so they're going to need to be active and precautious as these games continue on.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? This is always an interesting spot to see end games, because this kind of middle spot of the map, unless it pulls over to the spire, it's a pretty open area. You're not going to really have a lot of natural cover with trees or mountains or any of that kind of sorts. It's going to be a lot of people just running around through this big open, a little bit hilly, but that's about it. And that being said, it's kind of different. You have to play it more carefully. You're not going to be able to maneuver around a mountain and have just a free rotate where nobody looks at you. More than likely, anytime you rotate, there's going to be a team that's looking at you here because it's so open. So I'm curious to see exactly what's about to happen as this third zone is closing and we're about to get into that fourth circle.
Yeah, and as these players start to get congested more on top of each other in the zone, you see the fight start to take place like this. You saw Smitty kind of trying to hide there in a cone, but Fnatic quickly identifying that he was there, trying to get some shots off. You do see Fnatic actually take a little bit of damage. It looks like another player there in the distance caught that he had his builds open and got some shots in. Now Casual, Frankie, and Paul World. This is another trio that performed very well. Obviously, if they made it to this point, they were one of their top eight teams in the space. But we saw a lot of great plays here coming from the high ground for Casual, Frankie, and Paul World. Will we see a repeat of that action? That is the question we'll have answered here in these 6 matches.
Yeah, exactly. I don't really know what's going to happen here, but regardless, it looks like they're going to really try and hold this height, as other teams are seeing that. It's a tough position to be able to hold height this early on in the game because it's so easy to grab that height when we go into that half and half or that 6th zone. But if they're able to hold that half and half, it's going to be great for them. But it looks like Casual was a little bit blindsided right there, Panda, as people were hiding in a bush and they were able to take him out. Now, this is going to make it tough for them right now to hold height. They might be able to still easily get him off, but that being said, it's going to be so easy for people to just charge up there and take it. And look at that. So many people are spraying for that.
Yeah, and you even see Tony there helping his teammate out as this player kind of pushed up into their box. Nice little refresh for them, but it does look like Edgar from their team has already gone down. So they're going to need every advantage they can. Now you see them healing up quickly, identifying now what they need to do. But look how far away they are from zone. This is going to be a tough position. Even with the Peppers, they are going to be the focus if they are not careful. Now you see Casual and team having to completely drop their high ground play and go down. But fortunate for them, though, Storm Surge is not going to be a factor for them as they are 592 damage above the threshold.
Yeah, and Storm Surge, that's a dangerous place to be in, especially if you're low on it, because it's going to be really easy for someone to just pop in on you, or you're going to have to be looking for shots yourself, and that means you're going to have to let your defenses down a little bit as you need to try and rush for somebody. But that being said, sometimes, Panda, and I've said this before, being up on Storm Surge is not always the greatest thing, because that just means you might just want to chill in a box. And if you get caught up with one of the teams that's low on Storm Surge and they're doing anything they can to get that surge, that's not a receiving end you want to be a part of, because those people will go crazy to just try and do anything they can to make sure they're up on Storm Surge.
Yeah, I totally agree. The last place you want to be is in the path of someone that is suffering from being below that threshold of Storm Surge. But look, we've seen it a lot. We saw a lot of shots coming out there because guess what? There are players that are below, just like Sage Ranger up there. But look, he does not have to worry about Storm Surge anymore as Nevify, Jasty, and Tyke end up taking him out quickly. Taiku, I gotta say this was again another trio. Obviously they performed well enough to make it to today, but they did a very, very good job of holding low to mid ground spaces. So if they can continue to do that well today, that high ground team that we saw earlier is going to struggle, but not quite like Mex here, as Mex and Flixie, that team has officially gone down, but they've gone down to none other than Fabled Taco, Pencil Bob, and Truth.
Yeah, and you know what, Taco and them, they're a decent team to be watching, and that's exactly what they're doing right there. They're pulling off, what they can do. They're showing their power right now, and they're focusing on this end game, getting those eliminations still, because like we've talked about, it is really vital to wait to really get your eliminations end game. You don't really want to focus on it as much up front, but the eliminations will come end game if you just focus on rotates, because you're going to be able to pick people off in that sense as we go. But it looks like that's exactly what's going on here. As we have that fifth circle, people are trying to move forward. Storm Surge isn't here anymore, but we're probably going to see it when we get into that sixth zone. So everyone's still looking around for picks, and it's going to be a little chaotic right now.
Listen, if I'm Pencil Bob, right, that Raptor skin is going to be my best friend here, as this is a very, very green zone. So keeping one of those lower ground spaces here for Pencil Bob could be an advantage, to say the least. You actually hear the gas cans coming out. So some potential gas can plays taking place down low, as Casual, Frankie, and Paul World, they still hold the high ground. Even though they lost it there for a moment, it looks like they've been able to regain it and get some big tags there on Nevify. So this game continues to unfold as Frankie, Paul World, and Casual just look to maintain that high ground here going into the next zone.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm really excited to see where this goes here, because look at that height. Look how high they're holding up, but they got to be careful, especially with kind of going off that cliff, because if they don't have people close to them on second height, it's going to be really easy to disconnect. And you know what, Panda? We saw it yesterday. We saw a few people be eliminated to fall damage, and that is not something you want to see happen in trios, especially an entire trio. So you want to focus together on make sure you're still connected to those lower levels, or at least not too high up to where if you fall, you wouldn't be knocked out just from that fall, and you also have a position where you're able to build yourself back up really fast. But we're kind of looking at the high ground right now, and what do you think of these players? What do you think? We've seen a lot of Casual already today, Panda. What do you think is going to happen with them? Do you think these are going to be some players on top?
I definitely think they have the potential to come out on top. You see Pencil Bob, Truth, and Fabled Taco. They've gotten 2 eliminations on the board, but man, does Pencil Bob take some damage there from behind, and that's why you have to be careful. You have to make sure you are monitoring what's going on behind your tarp, because the last thing you can afford is somebody getting in there. And now you see Bob getting a little bit of a heal done and taken advantage of, but it does look like there's still some other players very, very close by. They're going to need to continue to push on, as these players are all around. You see in the kill feed, man, Death taking out Orag, D-Win taking out Kenny, and then Orag going down himself there to death. Listen, if you're John or Death in that trio, man, you are doing everything you can to continue surviving. Now you see some other players go down, as Dave is looking to just try and survive to a player by himself, 12 HP in a dream, no additional heals at this time. Everything that he does is going to matter here, as this zone ends up pulling away and it sticks him in the water. But no, it's not going to be enough, as Dave goes down early, and you see the pressure continues to rain down from Casual, Frankie, and Paul World.
Yeah, Casual, Frankie, and Paul are the team of this hour right now. We've seen so far this game that they're a skilled team. They know how to play together, but they got to be careful, especially with their holding height. And you know what? We have Storm coming, and Panda, Storm is not your friend in a game like this. So a lot of these players got to be careful. We've already seen one get knocked to Storm, and I'm sure multiple here have also. And so you got to be watching that. It's really easy to lose some health there, and it's really easy to not have the health to replenish, because you're only going to be able to replenish with, slurp fish or regular fish, or a med kit or band-aids, and sometimes if you just have a medkit or band-aids, it is hard to get those off in time before the storm hits you. And you want to have as much health as possible right now, because it's so easy to just become one shot, and so many players will just be able to take you out just like that, just with while you're rotating by, and they just got to hit one lucky bump and then you're done. But right now we're watching Dragon as Dragon rotates down but wasn't able to make anything happen. But we still have Frankie, World, and Casual on top. You know what? They're saying this is their game. We're in the final zone. The game is imminent. It's about to end. And World, Casual, and Frankie, they're all together now. None of them are down. None of them have been eliminated. And they're just ready. They're ready to just frag out. They're dropping down low. They're taking out this last team. They're going hard. They're going to make sure that this game is theirs, that they are certified to win here. But it looks like still Casual and Frankie and World are on top, popping down, going in. It looks like they just need one more elimination and the game is over. And they certified that victory royale, Panda.
That they did. Well deserved there for Casual, Paul World, and his team. Look, if you have high ground like that and you can maintain that level of dominance, you 100% deserve the victory royale, and that's why they were able to take that. But listen, I gotta dive back into some of this action, man, because there was so much going on here in this game. Number one, let's take a look at some of that action that we got to watch.
Yeah, when we're looking at John, Fades, and Death's team, I mean, these guys were cracked. We're watching them fake a lot of good plays throughout, but Zeno and Nico and them also did a lot of cool stuff too. We even saw, you know, with one of them being the last person running around with Dave right here, he was still able to pull in a few placement points as he was playing as a solo. And that's a big thing about trios and duos, is that when you are eliminated or your team's eliminated and you're still alive, it's just focusing on getting those placement points, because that's really what you need here. But there are so many good plays that we saw today, Panda, in this first game. So many good plays, so many good players, and it just goes to show that the rest of these games are going to be so exciting.
Yeah, look, and even for the situation there that you saw for Death, Fades, and John, man, they were so close in those final moments, but they just couldn't get out of it. Just like you see, Habit was unable to get out of there as Casual, Paul World, and Frankie end up walking away with the victory royale. But before we dive into any more victory royales, we're going to take a quick break, so make sure to stay tuned for all the action. back to the PlayVS Cup featuring Fortnite Trios event here today. Panda and Bryson bringing you everything you need to know, man, because there is so much going on. Bryson, game number 1, give me your thoughts.
Phew, Panda, I don't even know what to say. So much just happened there in those, 25, 30 minutes of the game that it's I can't wait for the rest of today. We already know some of these players, they all have kind of their own areas. Everyone is really just landing so separated. So we're seeing some super stacked end games here, and that's what's exciting for me. I love a good end game, but let's get into the leaderboards, Panda. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see who came out on top here in game number 1. And it is, of course, Frankie, Palworld, Casual, the team on the high ground, dominating from above and ultimately coming out on top. But if you look here, Habits Trio just below, only down by 3 points. So this is so early. There's still so much that can happen here as these games progress. Now, though, you see Death Fades John, another team doing extremely well. Not as good of placement average, but eliminations definitely carried them to that top 3 spot.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? Like we've talked about yesterday and before, just because these leaderboards are like they are right now doesn't mean that they can't change any game. You could be in this top 20 and you could end up being in the top 5 just within one game. And that's what I'm really excited for, because look at that. We have teams all the way that we know, like FG, Flixie, Summy, and Mex. They're all great players and they're only in 18th right now. But that doesn't mean they're going to be able to step it up, and we're going to see them get in that top 10, top 5 situation here. And I think that's safe to say with a lot of these other teams. We got in 5th place, Zeno, Dave, and Nico, another team that we saw really try to clutch it up last game, as Dave was the last one alive, and he was still able to pull in a few more placement points. So, all these players, they know how to play this game, and they know that this is no easy feat. Either way, they're all going to have to play smart. They all have to play strategically, and I think we're about to see some big things happen.
Yeah, I definitely think we're going to see tons of big stuff happen. But honestly, after yesterday and even after game number 1 here of today, I'm excited to see high ground plays, but I want to see some great low ground plays. We've seen how dominant the high ground can be, but there are players out there that can be just as dominant on the low ground. So I'm excited to see if some of these teams will step up to the plate and be able to show us why why low ground is still a viable option here in this game. Regardless, though, prepping for game number 2 here, Bryson, what do you think is going to happen here? Do we think we're going to get a repeat setup here for Frankie, Palworld, and Casual, or do you think somebody else is going to come out on top?
You know what, Panda? I really don't know what to say, but like we know, this is anybody's game here. Anybody could come out on top. We already saw, Casual and them did such a great job this first game, but if they don't hold that momentum, they could lose it just like that. So that being said, it's really just going to come down to how each one of these players plays these next few games.
Yeah, I totally agree. Listen, it all comes down to this. You have to remember, with all this prizing on the line and with everything going into these games, you need to stay focused. You need to maintain that excitement, that level of momentum that you may have early on in these games, and continue forward. Now, remember, if you made some mistakes here early on, or maybe you didn't perform as well as you really wanted to here in the first game, this is your chance. Make some changes, make those adjustments, micro adjustments at that, and move forward, because we saw there wasn't too much congestion going on at POIs, which means that you should be able to come out on top. But obviously, you never know. People can change POIs mid-tournament. You need to be prepared, steady, and ready for whatever this game throws at you.
Yeah, exactly, Panda. Anything could change just like that. And these players know that too. These players aren't going into these games just thinking, oh, we're going to win. They know that this is a competitive battlefield that they are dropping on right now. And they know that each and every one of them has to be at their full best state right now if they want to be able to walk away with some money, with those victory royales, and with those high placement games, Panda.
No, absolutely. And again, with placement being such a huge factor in these games, if you're not making it through the mid game into the late game, you're doing something wrong. We saw how Storm Surge affects some players into the later rounds of the game. That could affect you here if you're not taking it seriously. One of the best players in the game, Stretch, let everyone know that it's best to get those Storm Surge tags between Zone 1, Zone 2, right? If you're not doing that and you're not making sure that you're getting those tags early on, when Storm Surge becomes active, because it inevitably does, it's going to cause issues for you in your tournament. And that's the last thing you want to have to deal with, especially when there's another player on the other side of your wall that could be dealing with Storm Surge as well.
Yeah, you know what? You really want to make sure you get those early, because, you don't want to have to open up during the 4th and 5th zone and then have someone easily get, maybe a headshot bow, headshot snipe, or take some tags out on you. You want to be able to protect yourself those end games so you can focus on rotations. And the only way to do that is to really make sure you have those Storm Surge tags from the beginning, because if you don't have that, then you're going to have to really rely on yourself to get some more. But Panda, we are back with the action going into the second game, as we're watching All-Star and Smitty, two great players on some great teams, focusing on their drops right now. We see a steamy area, and we're already looking at a retail area. So a little bit, we're seeing two different teams that are pretty split apart right now, but that does not mean that we're going to see that we won't see a showdown between the two in this end game.
Yeah, anytime you put teams within the same vicinity of each other, there's going to be a chance of that showdown. Regardless, though, Garrison, Glass Widow, Smitty, this is a team that we didn't get to see too much action from there in game number 1. So now is their time to step up and show us what they have here in game number 2.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm really excited to see what happens here, because there's a lot of kids here that are playing that they realize what's on the line, and they're going to do whatever it takes to get that money. Trios only has 33 teams. So these lobbies are not, it's not huge. We're not seeing multiple different games. We're only seeing one lobby, Panda. So that being said, these 33 teams, they're competing heavily to try and get that money. They really want that prize pool for themselves. So to be able to do that, they're going to have to play these smart.
Yeah, they definitely are going to have to play this smart. Another situation here where you have to be smart is around Dirty Docks. While you see there are two teams here contesting or fighting here off spawn, there's also teams that tend to go towards the zip line. So if you're not careful, you can end up getting targeted from the zip line as well. And it's so important to avoid taking any unnecessary tags here early on.
Yeah, exactly. And like we talked about, you don't want to get hit on the receiving end of those Storm Surge attacks, but you do want to be making them. That's exactly what's happening right now. Because look at this fight right here. Everyone is so separated. We're not seeing any build fights. We're not seeing any direct box fights. Everyone's just looking around for a little bit of surge. But you know what? Spooky, he knew, okay, it's not worth peeking. It's not worth having my head taken off, and all of a sudden another team's able to push and we lose our second game. No, he knew to, kind of pull back, disengage, and I think that's going to really save them some time. That's really going to help them out within this next entire game.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing we didn't see, right? We didn't see too much action going on here from Narwhal, Hoofishy, and Kaz in game number 1. So could we see a turn around here for this team? A lot of expectation, I think, is in front of them, especially knowing that they were a grand finals team. So for them not to be on top, or at least close to the top there after game number 1, is a bit of a sign, to say the least. This just shows that these lobbies are tough to compete, even for some of the grand finalists from FNCS. That is why these games have been so exciting today, Bryson.
Yeah, and you know what? We're looking at a little bit of the action from Hoofishy, Kaz, and Naruto's game right now. And we know these players, especially Hoofishy. These are players that we've seen compete in massive game modes before, like FNCS Grands. And these are players that I'm really excited to see how they perform in a game like this, because regardless, they're taking every single game seriously. They might have that title behind them as a player that's competed in some really, really big tournaments, but that doesn't matter to them. They know that any tournament is a tournament, and they need to compete at the highest level possible, which, that being said, is what's going to make these games so crazy, because we have so many players like that are ready to just dominate.
Yeah, look, these players have shown that they are worthy of being here through weeks of rigorous gameplay. They have made their way here. They're, again, top 8 from East, top 8 from West in both the fall season and the spring season. So this is a total of 33 teams playing at a very, very high level throughout all of these weeks. And that's why we see players like Rect here struggling to stay alive as all these teams are converging here on Slurpy Swamp.
Yeah, and like we talked about in the last game, Slurpy Swamp is a good place to have, but you want to have it to yourself. You don't want to be contested out here, especially if you're landing on the outskirts, because there's not a lot of loot. There's a lot of health. You know, we have the Slurp mushrooms, we have Slurp juice all over the place, but you don't have, you know, the greatest selection of ammo, the greatest selection of materials, the greatest selection of weapons. And if you get put in a spot where you start to get pushed by somebody sneaks up on you, that's going to be tough for you. And I think that's exactly what's happening for them. While they're kind of fighting this, Rekt is trying to get those heals off. It looks like, you know, Trey is trying to hold it down as Rekt is trying to heal. Either way, it's going to be tough here for both of those teams.
Yeah, it definitely is going to be tough, man. Neither team is in zone here as this fight ensues, and it does not look like zone is even close. So that's why Rekt and his trio, that if they're going to want to survive and do well in the later portions of this game, they're going to have to finish these engagements fast. And man, as I say that, Rekt actually getting caught up in the tree there after getting that elimination. So this first engagement, or the second engagement, I should say, is going to go to Rekt, Mint, and his team. Now, the real question is, will they be able to keep that up? Anything goes here as these games continue to progress. But one thing I will mention, man, if you have Slurpy Swamp and you can control that effectively, you should be able to come out on top in a tournament format like this.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great place to be able to just alpha for yourself. Now we're looking over here at Spooky and Saiku's team. They're in a interesting spot as they're trying to rain down shots on All-Star, Dev, and Raindrop. Now, they're in an interesting spot too, but All-Star kind of has an easy escape here. If he has to get away, they can just jump on the spiral. Now, we do know that the spiral is another source of rotation throughout this season, but it's kind of like the rifts that we've had before, where it's only in certain spots on the map. So you have to be able to know that drop well. If you're landing there, you know that, you know, we're utilizing this spot because of the spiral. So I think them being up there already, they know that they have an easy escape, and they're not really just trying to get away yet. But let's look over at Garrison, Smitty, and Glass Window. What do you think of this loadout right now, Panda? Do you think this is something that's going to really sport him in this end game?
Absolutely. You saw Smitty's loadout there for a moment, and that's a loadout that I would want to have personally in my inventory. When you have the power weapon and that pump shotgun and the epic variant of the pump shotgun, nonetheless, you're going to feel pretty comfortable going into fights. Just like Kaz here, going in with that P90 and the pump shotgun, getting big tags there to a quick knock, as now Narwhal gets into the box as well. This team is quickly eliminating them, and this is what we were talking about. If you're going to take these fights, you have to do it fast. You cannot afford to wait too long at this point in the game, but this is why Narwhal, Kaz, and Who Fishy are so good. They can take the fight, execute quickly, and move on to the next.
Yeah, exactly. And that's going to be something that's going to really work out for them in these end games here, because they're able to just wipe through trios just like that. And they're going to make this game their own. They're going to really positively, you know, show people that they deserve these victory royales. And I think that's something we're going to see today. But now we're looking at Jolly, Orag, and Kazi, which we saw a small bit of, you know, gameplay earlier in the last game. But they're looking over at Nico, Dave, and Zeno, another team we saw last game, Panda. And these are both good teams. You know, this is going to be an interesting fight if it ends up panning out between them. But like we talked about earlier, we're kind of just in that storm surge stage. Everyone's just looking around for tags. No one's really trying to take fights. Only a few teams we've seen done that so far.
Yeah, I definitely agree. We haven't seen as many tags coming off, but that means these players are smart. They know that positioning themselves well in zone is going to be the priority, because placement is key here. Of course, as we say at Paul World, our game one winning team taking shots down at Jolly, Orag, and Cozy Ozzy as they just begin to rotate. You see them both in zone as of right now, and this team is deciding, you know what? I don't like this position. I want to get up a little bit higher, and you see Orag quickly rotate back up to this house.
Yeah, exactly. They're in a spot right now, too, where they're kind of just chilling around, but they got to play together. And, you know, that's the big thing about Fortnite is you want to stay together, which it looks like Tala right now just goes down as he was alone. And look who it is that just rained through. Kaz, Narwhal, and Who Fishy. Like I said, Panda, they are trying to dominate this lobby right now. Now, that being said, I wonder if we're going to end up seeing any of the elimination caps here. If a team like Who Fishy and Narwhal and Kaz, these are going to be the teams that we could see possibly get up there in those elim caps, because these guys, they know how to frag out. They know how to play this game very W key like, and they know how to, it can be risky W keying, but if you're good at the game, if you know how to do it strategically, you're going to come out on top, especially with loadouts like that.
Yeah, absolutely. If any team is going to be capable of coming out on top of the 20 elimination game, it's going to be Who Fishy, Narwhal, and Kaz. They are the key masters NA East of the W key. They know exactly how to push people progressively, make sure that they can get into these boxes as needed and perform at a high level. That's why you see Who Fishy, even though his team's not quite with him, is already diving into the game, making sure that he gets that quick elimination there. Now, though, you see Who Fishy does get the full elimination there on Garrison, but this team is still rotating away as Kaz is still getting shot at from the hill. Kaz actually getting the knock there on Glass Window. Something must have happened there, it looks like, with his team. But they're fortunately going to be able to convert that into another elimination. But look at that. 8 on the board already.
Wow, yeah, that's a lot of eliminations, especially when we're only in the second zone. This is a team, they're really showing that they wanna take control here, especially from what I've been seeing. It looks like they might have actually not have queued up with the first game, Panda. That being said, Who Fishing them, they're trying to make up for what they missed, and I think they're doing that pretty dang well right now.
Yeah, they're definitely doing a very, very good job of that. But look, it's not over till it's over, folks. You see Casual, Paul World, Frankie going up against Eden. Eden was actually, if I'm not mistaken, top 3 from the Trios event just a few weeks ago. So looking at this situation, you could see him end up taking the top 3 spot, but it's not happening as of now.
Yeah, exactly. So that being said, let's look at Casual World and Frankie. Really, that was a team that, we saw dominate last game as they got that victory royale. Do you think, with players such as Who Fishy, Naruto, and Kaz making them way back into the game, do you think that's going to be, they're going to have to play a little bit more strategic and maybe not try and frag out as much? Because we already know that we have some teams here, especially with Who Fishy and them, that are going to be able to play this game really well on this end game. And if they have other teams that are also trying to get this, it's going to be a little bit of a head-to-head and fight here. And you don't want to be in those fights, especially when it gets into those final zones and you want to be focused on your rotates.
Yeah, you're definitely going to want to focus more on the rotations. But looking at Kaz, Who Fishy, and Narwhal, they know that they weren't able to perform highly in game number 1, so they're making up for it here in game number 2. You see quickly eliminating Habit there as the rest of his team now forced to back up. You see Taiksu there in the distance. He needs to be super careful, Kaz here. If he's not covering himself up to the side, like I just said, he could end up getting focused, and that's what happens right there as another team off in the distance starts to take shots at him.
Yeah, you know what? Like we talked about before, W keying can be really fun. It can be really a great time. And if you're good at it, a lot of the time you're going to come out on top. But it can be really easy to third party because you have yourself so open, especially in these end games, when you're looking for eliminations, when you're looking for fights. And that's going to make it so easy for other teams to third party. And, we talked about that a lot yesterday, Panda, is third party is such a big thing that happens in Fortnite. And you really do not want to be on that receiving end because you could be playing like phenomenal, and then all of a sudden your game just goes out just like that, just because you weren't paying attention to what was around you.
Yeah, you definitely need to pay attention, which is why Scheist and that team have gone back to the lobby, because Kaz, Who Fishy, and Narwhal were able to capitalize, understand that this team was at a disadvantage, and quickly convert that over. Now you see a little bit of the stuff going on as Casual just continues to rotate into Dirty. This is going to be a Dirty Dock zone, which is nice to see, to say the least. But we will see who can come out on top, as Frankie, Paul World, and Casual actually have positioned themselves well to take high ground yet again here in game number 2.
Yeah, and if they can get that high ground, like we've seen it before, they know how to dominate these lobbies. So that'll be something I would not want to see if I was another player. I would not want to see these guys running the high ground, because then you know this game, might possibly not be your game anymore if Frankie, World, and Casual are the ones dominating. And looks like they're going to be looking to tarp a little bit ahead. They're not having that direct high ground, I think, at the moment, because they know there are people on the hill. They know there are people on the zipline area. So they got to still focus on just rotating forward and using, you know, as little mats as possible while looking for engagements.
Yeah, they really are looking for these engagements. You see, though, they don't have any eliminations on the board as of yet here in game number 2. But fear not, because those eliminations come easier as the game continues to progress. You see Dev Bula actually looking to take some shots off in the distance as players just try to rotate through the water. And I feel for these players, right? If you're stuck in the water like that, you're going to have a tough time trying to survive here in this zone.
Yeah, exactly. And we're looking at, you know, an interesting endgame, especially with the POI being Dirty Docks, because there's so many different spots in here that you're able to hide. I mean, you have like all those crates over there that you can hide in. You have some of these giant warehouses, and you can even hide below in the water, which, as you see, Panda, it's not just the beach, but there's a little bit of a drop there from the POI to the water. So if a team is playing it, you know, a little bit passive, they might be able to rotate just moving around through that water. Either way, it's going to be an exciting endgame, just to say the least, because this is an interesting spot. You don't see a lot of endgames take place here.
You definitely don't. And looking at the leaderboard here on the side, you see Habits, Scheist, and Zero. Actually, one of those teams we watched go down quickly. They were currently holding that second place spot, but unfortunately, with them going down so early here in game number 1, they're probably not going to be able to maintain it. But a team that is looking to not only take over after their poor performance here in game number 1, they're looking to build their name up. It is Narwhal, Kaz, and Who Fishy. They have just dominated this lobby so far. 11 eliminations on the board, and we're not even halfway through yet. You see Kaz, Who Fishy, Narwhal just trying to continually get eliminations. Narwhal doing a very, very good job of controlling the situation here with the bow. You know he's got the aim to be one of those top fraggers here in the game. He's going to take shots where he can and only take shots where he feels comfortable, which is why they've done so well throughout this game number 2.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, if they're going to be holding height too, that is not a team you want to be able to see on height, especially if you're really trying to move yourself forward in this game and get those eliminations, get those placement points, because that's a team that could really end your game just like that. Just like that. So you got to be careful as you're playing these games. You got to be careful that you know who everybody is, and that's something that's so different than just normal tournaments, opens, and tournaments that have multiple lobbies. You have one lobby here, and everybody knows who everybody is. So people will try to avoid the other people when they see them, because they know that's not a fight that I want to take. And that being said, that's a smart way to play, because you want to focus on getting these placement points, and you're not going to get that if you are eliminated off spawn fighting a team that you really did not need to push.
Yeah, look, you need to be careful when you're taking these fights, man. Like, all I'll say is, for Death Phase and John, they're a great team. They know how to handle these fights. But if you're on the receiving end, you're on the other end of this fight, if you're not careful, you're going to end up back in the lobby, and that's the last place you want to be at this point in the game, especially considering this is game number 2. This is still setting yourself up for the rest of the tournament. We saw yesterday how big the points can get, how many points can really get up on the board, and that's the same thing here today in trios, because the format works similarly. Placement is king. So many placement points up for grabs. Now it's up to these teams to really focus on taking them.
Yeah, and you know what? As long as all these teams play it smart and play it right, we're going to see a lot of placement points be dropped along the board here. But it looks like Kaz, Who Fishy, and Narwhal, they're pulling zone a little bit to their left, and if they rotate, ahead of time, they might be able to play this early and still hold that hype, but they still got to be careful with it. Now we're looking over at Jolly, Oreg, and Cozy, another team that we're really seeing a lot of great gameplay from today, but it's only the second game. And like we've talked about, so much can change right now. So much is on the line, and you got to play each game like it's your last.
Yeah, and look, they're doing a really good job of rotating early. This is what you want to see from these teams. They have to identify what's going on around them rotate when they can, and if they can rotate early, they need to find a nice spot in zone. But it looks like you see people like Mex, Flixie, and Sumsy already have made their way into the zone. They're actually got a really nice high ground spot there in zone as well. Now, though, Orag actually getting tagged up there, and so is Jolly and Cozy. When they try to finish their rotation, they have made it in, but you see the shots coming out from every direction, so they really are going to have to be cautious here. That legendary assault rifle, though, Bryson, is going to play a huge factor in how much of this game they can control.
Oh yeah, that legendary assault rifle right now, that's a weapon you want to have on your team. You know, it's so easy and it's so accurate to get picks with that weapon that teams that are utilizing it, those are the teams that are going to get a lot of these end game eliminations as they're just looking for picks of people running around. Now we got Mex over here. He might not have that, you know, epic assault rifle, but he still does have a great aim, and it doesn't really matter what weapon you put in his hands because he's going to be able to deliver with it. Let's get back to the big Fishy, Kaz, and Narwhal getting into a little bit of a box fight action. Narwhal was able to take that shot right there. It looks like they're going to try and carry the other player back and take some of his resources before anybody else can get in there and take it from them.
Yeah, smart play on their part, being able to bring that player into their box with them. You do see the shots that were coming off from the high ground. They're going to have to be careful and continually cover up here. Naruto, Mr. Narwhal himself, getting some shots there off onto Summy. Now, though, Feneric, Eden, and D-Win, they are definitely surviving, but not looking the healthiest that they have looked in this game so far. Only one elimination on the board. Their layer, it does seem to be contested, and it does look like they began to get focused here as Storm Surge becomes active.
Yeah, and you know, Storm Surge active, especially in these moving zones, that is not a receiving end you want to be on. But look at Shore right there, making a massive height play, making sure he has that height for himself. A team we haven't really seen a lot of yet today, but a team nonetheless, if they're able to hold height like that, then they're going to really dominate this end game. And now we're seeing all these other players are substantially lower on the map. You know, these guys holding height, they're pretty high up there compared to everybody else. So they got to be careful because we do not want to see any eliminations due to fall damage here.
Yeah, that's the last thing you want to see. Fall damage, it can be a make or break thing here in these games, especially if you have high ground and you're not properly held up. But Kaz, Narwhal, and Fishy are doing a good job of holding the layer that they're in as Smite, Dev, Shore just rain down from above. But looking at the elimination feed, you see Nevify actually taking out Aqua there. That's a good sign for them, as that team is one of the fan favorites, to say the least, there from chat. But looking at the performance that they've been able to do so far, it looks like they're going to have some solid games today, to say the least.
Yeah, exactly. And we're looking at, you know, these guys really dominating high right now. You know, you have Smite absolutely smiting the players below him, just raining down shots on them, making sure nobody is able to advance forward. Because like I said, they want to hold this. And look at those layer changes right there. Those are really strategic layer changes. You know, they want to make sure they connect and maybe go down a layer so they're not too high up, but they're still able to hold that height flawlessly. There is nobody contesting that right now. Now we still see, it looks like Fishy was taken down with Seek's Elim, but Kaz and Narwhal are still alive on the board right now. And if they can hold their own, they might be able to make something happen here, and we might be able to see a possible victory royale, but hopefully that top 2, top 3 situation. Now we've got Narek, though. Narek is alone. It looks like the rest of his teammates have been eliminated, so he's going to really have to focus on pulling this game out by himself, which can be really difficult in a game mode like Trios.
Yeah, it's definitely tough to see, but look at that, man. You see them, 16 eliminations on the board. That 20 elimination cap, it might come in handy here to hold Kaz, Fishy, and Narwhal back. But now it's actually all up to Kaz, as Narwhal and Fishy have both gone down. Kaz just trying to hold on as the shots are raining down from above. He does get some nice tags off here as he continues to rotate. Looking around, though, there are so many players here. Kaz needs to be careful. He's going to have to play the back of zone as a solo player. That is the only effective way for him to survive here, but he's going to do a good job at it. He still has 7 builds remaining. Not too much to work with, but that's not what matters. What matters is, will he be able to execute if he runs up into a player?
Yeah, and you know, with these these ninth zones, these final zones, it's very easy to run into a player, and you most likely will run into a player. But we're looking at Fades, John, and then Death. They're really trying to hold this low ground. As you know, Dev, Shore, and Smite, they're still holding that high. Like I said, they're really wanting this game. Now they're utilizing those peppers. So if one of them has to drop down, look for some shots, they can easily run right back up. But it's kind of looking like this might just be a 3v3. No, not a 3v3. It looks like one other team was just eliminated. And I think we are now looking at a 3v3 situation. Smite looking for some shots while Shore is still up there with him, but Dev just goes down. So there's really not a left to play around with right now, and only a few more eliminations if they're going to want to make this happen. But John was able to make it. Unfortunately, wasn't able to make the shot go off as Dev, Shore, and Smite were able to get that victory royale.
Yeah, look, if you're Smite and Trio, you are holding on for dear life, because guess what? You saw Fades, you saw Death in the elimination feed, getting those elims, and that you knew that that was the team that you're going up against. Fortunate for them, though, they were able to clutch up and take home that victory royale. Looking at this, though, we had so much action happen in that game. Let's go ahead and dive right into the action.
Yeah, and you know, we're already getting started with that Slurpy Swamp fight that we saw at the beginning. That was an interesting spot to be around because you don't want to get stuck in those areas. But still, we have the WK Kings right here as they just went through that lobby, looked for so many shots. Now, Kazi, Jolly, Arag, they still also had a pretty good end game. But Semi, Mex, Flix, too, they were a team that we saw on height for a little bit. But, Panda, like we noticed, they weren't able to keep that height.
Yeah, they definitely weren't able to hold the high ground. And that's the thing, right? When high ground does have advantages, you need to be able to maintain it as well. And unfortunately, these teams have been struggling to maintain high ground here in game number 2. We didn't see anybody really consistently hold it there until the very, very end. Feneric actually holding on there. You see Fades, Death, and John. This is where they were taking these shots. They were getting those eliminations. But ultimately, they thought they had every advantage to go up and win this game. But no, Smite, Dev, and Shore came up and said, nah, this is our game, and we're going to take you out in this final moment.
Yeah, and you know, John, Death, and Fades, though, that's a really good team, too. In that second place, that's a good spot for them to still be in, you know. Really, just getting in that top 5, that's really what you want, because that's where a lot of those placement points, you know, are really vital in these games. But that being said, it's still going to have to be, there's still a lot of playing field left. I mean, we have 4 more games left, Panda. So much could happen here.
So much can happen in these 4 games, but before we can get to that action, we're going to take a quick break. Make sure to stay tuned, and we'll be right back. are back to the PlayVS Cup featuring Fortnite Trios event, man. We've got 2 games completed under the belt, but I gotta say, look, this is the first 2 games. Narwhal, Kaz, and Hoofishy made a big comeback for performance there with 16 eliminations there in game number 2. So there's a lot of potential for them moving forward. They just need to continue that momentum that they had there in game number 2. But we also got to talk about our Victory Royale team. They did an extremely good job of managing the players from above and ultimately working their way down and holding down the fort there necessarily to get that Victory Royale.
Yeah, exactly, Panda. And you know what? I'm excited to see what these teams do in this third game, which we are getting into right now. Now, looks like people have dropped. We're looking at Casual, Paul, and Frankie. These guys, like we see before, they are crazy. They're the first game winners at the first game, and these are guys that, you know, they're going to want to hold the spot because they know that there's some other teams here. There's teams like Hoofishy and them that they got to watch out for, that they want to make sure no one steals their spotlight. Now, Lazy Lake, that is a big spot to drop at, and it looks like they're not the only team there, but it could still be like you're the only team there with how big it is, because you're really easily able to take a spot for yourself here.
Yeah, you definitely can take a spot. Look, Lazy Lake is not an extremely big drop. It is a great POI, and it definitely has great loot located within it. But one thing I will say is when you are contested here at Lazy, it is a tough ride. Because if you spend too much time at Lazy Lake, you find yourself having to deal with Caddy Corner, Misty Meadows, and all these other teams that are rotating from around this area. So, like Alex is doing here, it makes a lot more sense to just rotate out. Looks like he's going to be able to actually be the benefactor here of a nice llama chilling on the side of the hill, too.
Yeah, and you know what, like we talked about before, those llamas are so clutch for teams because it provides so many materials that you're able to just utilize as a team. It's not just like a drop. You know, when you have those drops that go around to the map, you really just are helping one of the members because someone's going to take that weapon that's in it. But a llama, those are such key components to games. Now, as these guys are trying to make their way from Lazy, they still got to be careful and watch their backs. Just look at that map. It looks like they're being directed. The other team is directly looking right at them, so they got to be careful with how they're walking because you do not want something just like that to happen where you get cracked while you have very little mats.
Yeah, looking at this, though, not looking great here for loot. And it looks like that Lazy Lake team that they were contesting is actually going to push directly after them. So this is a tough spot here. If you're Alex 304 and Kexerty, this team, you understand that, guess what? Maybe I messed up. Maybe I shouldn't go back to Lazy Lake there after this game. But look, game number 3 is completely underway here. We're almost at the halfway mark through these games. So now's the time to fix those mistakes before any more games go under your belt.
Yeah, and you know what? We're moving back over to Misty, one of my personal favorite POIs on this map. I really hope that we get to see that POI stay forward throughout this game. But we're looking at John's team. You know, John, Death, and Fades. Those are our first place people right now. Those are the people that are holding it down because they've gotten they've gotten in the top 3 both of the last 2 games. But now we got Frankie, Casual, and World, and it looks like they finally met up with the team that they were looking to push. And it looks like they have the advantage right now as it is a 3v2 situation.
Yeah, getting a quick elimination on one of those players is obviously going to put you in a much more comfortable position. Now, the one thing I want to say, though, is you need to be careful still. When you're in a fight like this and you don't have complete control of the outcome, ultimately, you're going to make mistakes. And fortunately for them, though, Frankie, Paul World, and Casual, they're not a team that makes mistakes. That's why they're able to clean up that player quickly, and they continue to work together. You see them all pretty much effectively working from a box here together, now actually building out, looking to try and keep it going, but there's not a lot of builds left in the inventory, so they really can't afford to build fight these players, but they can afford to take the fight as they have advantages.
Yeah, and it looks like, you know, if the other team has the height, they're going to be able to take that fight right back down to him. Considering, like you said, they don't have maybe the mat advantage, but they have the player advantage. But as I say that, Casual goes down. This is going to be a little bit of a more interesting fight here, as now Frankie and World are in a 2v2 situation, but Frankie wasn't able to keep himself up either. And now Alex and World in 304, they're going to be going against Paul World right now. And as Paul's by himself, unfortunately, he wasn't able to keep it going. So as a team that was looking for a heavy W key right there, it didn't work out in their favor.
Yeah, look, I mean, they were our game one winners, and going down early here in game number 3 is not going to be a good look there for them, but not a team that actually did go down pretty early there in game number 2 and is now looking to make a comeback for it. It is Habits, Ziri, and Scheist. As they're pushing up, they know they need to make up for the points that they lacked there in game number 2. So now it's about them coming out in game number 3, and it looks like they're going to with 3 quick eliminations here in Dirty Docks.
Yeah, and you know what? If you're able to take Dirty Docks for yourself right there, that's going to be a great POI to be around because there's a lot of stuff that you can get here. A lot of materials, a lot of weapons, a lot of ammo, and that's exactly what they're doing. They're kind of alphaing the spot, although it does look like we still have some other people in the area, so they got to be careful. They got to play it together. But we still also have, we have this AI, we have that NPC. The NPC is a great add to these past few seasons. Having the NPCs around Fortnite is something that I actually think is really cool. At first, people were a little bit weary of it, but now people have really starting to get used to it because there is so many beneficial factors that NPCs can bring into this game. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, Panda, but what do you think about that?
Yeah, I definitely, it really depends, right? Like, I think looking at the whole situation, you really have to be very closed-minded. But looking at this, though, the leaderboards are here, folks, and I gotta say, this is not what we expected, or maybe some of you at home did, as Fades, Death, and John take that first place spot with 153 points. You see Dev, Smite, and Shore just behind with 137 points. Tyke, Nevify, and JC now in third place with 99 points. Truth, Pencil Bob, and Fabled Taco there with 96 points. Hall World, Frankie, and Casual falling to 5th with 95 points. And remember, they were just eliminated here in game number 3, so they're not going to be able to add too many points there. 6th place is going to go to Orag, Jolty, and Cozy Ozzy. 7th is Dwin, Eden, and Feneric. 8th is Sub, Dragon, and Pure Razor. 9th is going to be Wrecked Mint, 1X, and Trey. And last but not least, in one of those top 10 spots is Habits, Scheist, and Ziri, that team that we just saw fighting at Dirty Docks. Unfortunately, didn't have a good game 2, but they are going to come back here in game number 3. Now, though, in one game, I am hearing reports in one game, Hoofishy, Kaz, and Narwhal actually received 75 points. So in game number 2, they got every single point that they have on the board. What an incredible game number 2 for them. You now see Edge, Your Easy Kid, and Z1 walking away with 70 points so far. Judd, Scrub with 64, and then you just keep going down with Summy and Mex with 56, Aqua and Leroy with 54, but that's going to be a big difference there in points, Bryson.
Oh, yeah. You know what? It's crazy to see, our guys in first. They're already up there in the 150th points. We're all the way down in that, that 12th spot. And we're looking at 70 to 60 points here. So some of these teams are going to have to really step it up. But like we know, we do have some teams too, like in 5th place, Paul and them, they want to hold that spot, but like we know they were sent back to the lobby a little prematurely here, and that is not a position you want to be in, especially if you're trying to hold that top 5. You want to be able to hold each game. But that being said, they're still in a good enough position where they can have 1 or 2 maybe throwaway games, as long as they make sure that they play every single other game to the best of their ability.
Yeah, they do definitely need to play it to their best. They were in 2nd. They dropped down. Now here in game number 3, they're going to get some eliminations, and they're going to rotate away from Dirty Docks. Now, though, the focus is on Nevify, JC, and Taiksu as they get a nice quick cleanup here of a potentially another trio. So this is really, really solid performance here for them as they are just trying to be on top. Again, one of the fan favorites here. We see you guys in chat spamming some names. They are here, folks, and they are putting up quick eliminations there for you at home.
Yeah, exactly. And we're back with Hoofishy, Kaz, and Narwhal, another team that we just saw dominate last game. Like you said, they got all 75 of their points in one game. So considering that, if they do that again, then we're going to see them climb up into that top 5 position here on the leaderboard fairly soon. So that's something I'm super excited for, because we still got 3 more games after this game. So that being said, a lot can happen. And if they keep that momentum, then we're going to see them, make a big improvement from where they're at on leaderboard to where they'll be in the next few games. But they got to keep that momentum, and they got to still stay playing together as a team. And that's going to be hard because look at this spot right now. There are a lot of people around them, so you have to stay together.
Yeah, you definitely do have to stay together. And fortunately for them, though, you're going to see them stay together here as all these trios are on top of each other. No one is separating. They have a good position here in this zone early on here in zone number 2. And they're ultimately just looking for any kind of shots that they could take. We know Kaz, Fishy, and Narwhal are biting at the bit to get into an engagement here, but they also need to be cautious. Now, there it is. The shots are coming out here as they're trying to drop Shark down here with Astra and Zimmy. They're not going to be successful so far, but looking at this, though, it did get them to utilize some builds early on as Shark now just trying to make sure that he can stay up on his high ground position.
Yeah, and you know what? High ground's a good spot to be in, Panda. It really is. And especially where they're at, kind of in this mid area, they're going to be able to look around for a lot of shots. But you still have to be careful, especially with something like the mechanical bone game, because somebody could just be taken from 200 to 0 just like that. And bam, there you go. You lost your height position, and you don't want to be stuck in that. But we got Summy, Mex, and Flix, another team we've seen do some pretty wild things today. You know, they've been playing really well, and like we saw earlier, they're in that 14th spot on the leaderboard after game 2. So they can really play this well. If they can play it right and just play it smart, we could see them too be another team that potentially climbs up on that leaderboard.
Yeah, and I think that's what they're trying to do here. They want to continue to climb on the leaderboard every chance that they get, because guess what? These prizes that are on the line are insane. Great opportunities here for these players. Now it's just about executing on these game plans here, as Kaz, Narwhal, and Fishy have still failed to put even one elimination on the board following their 16 elimination game.
Yeah, and you know what? That's they had some big shoes to fill, and you know what? Maybe other teams saw that. Maybe other teams were like, you know what? We need to step it up a little bit. We can't let another team be running the lobby. And maybe that's exactly what happens. Or maybe they just wanted that one game, and now they're going to really just focus on that placement and play this rest of this tournament steady. Either way, we're about to see a lot of crazy action right here as a box fight pursues, as they're spraying down another person's wall, hoping that one of them will be able to grab that wall and maybe get a little piece control action if they move themselves forward in this fight.
Yeah, they're definitely going to have to be careful when moving themselves, though. Looking around, I do see it looks like Max, Summy, and Flixie there, right next to Narwhal, Kaz, and Fishy. There's a lot of action happening at this gas station. Fortunately, it does look like Summy and team are going to be able to rotate away, but not without another team attempting to rotate closer to Neon on Switch, another fan favorite there in the chat, actually rotating towards them as the high ground players are going to be able to take some significant shots off. So listen, if you're a team like Neon on Switch, you're going to want to be careful and just get ready to hold your walls as these players begin to shoot down.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, another thing that we talked about yesterday, we're seeing both East and West players in here. That being said, there is going to be a ping difference between some players. So some players are going to have to play their game a little bit differently than they might in normal games. Like if you're a West player and say you have a little bit of higher ping, you're going to want to play a little bit more passive. You're going to want to box fight and then look for pre-fires, which is a really great way to play. But look at Sunny as he tries to get that little bit of a stare at it. Almost got that shot off, but it wasn't quick enough. Still was able to show a little bit of his mechanics right there, and we know that these players are good. And look at them, they're fighting Alex and 304 in Cardzy. This is a team, Panda, that we have already seen today has defied the odds. Even when everything was going against them as they were getting pushed, they still came out on top. So you know, they could be doing big things this game. They could climb up on that leaderboard too.
Yeah, but look, it's all about who wants it more and who has the skill to take it today, because these players all have competed for weeks to get to this point, and now they're here, and they're not here going to waste it. So in match number 3, that's why we're seeing these players play a little bit more cautiously. You see people like Narwhal, Kaz, and Fishy not necessarily being as aggressive as they were in game number 2. You see teams like John, Death, and Fade just trying to make sure that they take shots where they can, get the surge tags early on, and then I continue to stay placed, because ultimately that's the game plan. You do not want to overextend this early in a match, or you're going to find yourself back in the lobby sooner than you would like.
Yeah, exactly. And you still want to focus on making sure you have the right amount of mats counts because you don't want to be stuck with a low amount of materials. Now, like we talked about yesterday, one thing that does put an advantage in trios is having multiple other players with you. You know, you're not just by yourself. You have somebody else. So if you need somebody to feed you material, somebody to give you that brick, metal, or wood as you are tarping ahead, you'll usually have somebody to back you up. But you still want to make sure every single team is set on the right amount of materials because these end games will get hefty with building. You will be seeing a lot of the tarps being placed out, but you want to make sure you have the mats for it because the last thing you want is to end up in a spot where you have no mats and every team is looking at you.
Yeah, to say the least, as these teams are looking, it looks like you see Dev here, Smite and Shore. They're looking off in the distance in the wrong direction. They don't know that, but we on the broadcast know that because we know all the players are actually just there to their right. And that's why the shots start coming in here. And if you're not careful and you're holding those edits open for too long, you're going to be the victim of targeting. And that's what we saw there for just a moment as Smitty began taking shots towards Smite, Shore, and Dev.
Yeah, and you know what? Shore, Smite, and Dev is another high-quality team that we've been seeing play these games right now. They're actually only in that second spot, so if they're going to want to really, certify that first place, they're going to have to make sure that they keep it going. They got to make sure they keep that momentum going. But, like we've seen so far, they know how to do that, and where they're at right now, they made it to that fourth circle. They made it to the beginning of the end game, so as long as they can keep it going, as long as they can keep that momentum up, even with some of the players that they see in the midst, like Who Fishy, and some of these greats that we have playing right now, they're still going to be able to put a lot of action forward as long as they just be smart about it.
Yeah, it's all about being smart here in these situations. But look, you don't get to this point by not being smart, right? So I think these players know what they need to do. They just need to make sure that they keep their emotions in check. They keep that good, clean mental, and they execute on their game plan effectively. That's going to be the priority here, especially for a team like Narwhal, Who Fishy, and Kaz that have really only had one game of points under their belt so far.
Yeah, and you know what? They're still alive on the leaderboard, and they're still looking for some other Elans. But like we said earlier, they're playing it a lot more passive than they were earlier, and that's okay. They got a great amount of points that last game they just played, and now they know they can play for placement. They can play for those points late game, and they're still going to get just as many points as they get that Victory Royale, and that's ultimately what they really want here. They can certify one Victory Royale right here, and they're going to be right back in that top 5 position, which would be super impressive to see. But nonetheless, we know there are players that can do that. Now we're looking at some box fight action between them. They're a little bit in the mist right here with a lot of players around them. So like we talked about, they got to keep that momentum if they want to stay alive on this leaderboard.
Yeah, look, staying alive is going to be key here. And for, as we say that, of course, Kaz ends up going down. Who Fishy, Narwhal just trying to hold on as they are getting focused heavily. Fortunately, though, it does look like they're going to be able to pick up Kaz. This is going to be a huge feat for them as a team as Narwhal just tries to hold the high ground and get away from the stink bow.
Yeah, and you know what? Really strategic gameplay right there. Narwhal, instead of going down into that box with him, he kind of went back up on the height, not necessarily just to hold the height, but to hold that entire spot, because that made people think that they were up there with him. No one's going to go down and think that they're separated like that, but now that they were able to get that revive off, and it looks like they're going to be right back in this game with all 3 of their players, and that is huge, especially when you have a moment like that where you get knocked. That is a scary moment, especially as a player, because you do not want to be down a teammate when you get into these end games. But if you're able to find the moment and the momentum to get your teammate back up, then you deserve the best in these games. And you know what? These are players that are going to make big things happen. But let's look at John, Death, and Fades. What do you think right now, Panda? With these guys holding height, do you think this is going to be a big alpha game for them as they're going to take control of this lobby, or what?
You definitely see them executing on things that really only pros do, as Fades gets a nice actual knock there with the bow. Huge advantage there early on as he just destroys the player from across the way, and the damage just continues to ensue as Fades shoots that bow off into the distance. Now just trying to completely convert there on the elimination. Does not look like he's going to be able to, but for Fades, Death, and John, they're in a good spot. They have high ground. He has the arrows now, as since he's been shared with the rest of his team. He has the arrows to make some things happen. Now it's just a matter of holding on to this high ground, making sure that you have everything you need, and executing on your game plan. These players know how to handle high ground. They know what the strategy needs to be. Now it's all about executing on said strategy.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? Sean, Fades, and Death is an impressive team, to say the least. They play so well together. So when you see a team like that on high ground, you get scared because you really do not want to get stuck being focused by them. So a lot of these players, they're going to be looking for a low ground place right here because it's just too easy to get focused by high ground when you're on that mid level, when you're on that second height. You know, a team like this, John and them, Fades and Death, whew, that is not the team you want focusing you in this moment.
Yeah, not at all. But looking at this situation, though, Death actually gets a nice tag off there as Storm Surge is really playing an effect here in this lobby. We see it continually, time and time again, become active. That just means there are so many players remaining at this point in the game as Hoofishy completely gets eliminated. Now it's all up to Kaz here. They only have one elimination on the board. This is not normal for them, especially considering this point in the game, though. Kaz has qualified, if you don't know, for every single grand finals in existence. So a huge feat here for Kaz as he continues to play on as a solo player.
Yeah, and you know what, Kaz, being a solo player, he can really hold his own still. And especially in a game mode like this, you know, sometimes we see some of these crazy games with points when just only one player is left alive. And, you know, I think Kaz is exactly going to do that. But he's got to really get himself in here quick, and he's got to be able to get some health off because he is only 4 health. That's one storm tick, or that's one shot by something else. So if he can really focus on slaying forward, but he gets that knock, that quick elimination, but it wasn't enough. He wasn't able to get it off in time, so that is not going to be a point that counts for them. Instead, we're going to be going back to John, Death, and Fades as they're still holding the high ground.
Yeah, and doing a good job at it, man. I'm going to say this is their game to lose. They have every advantage in the book here. They have material, they have the high ground, and they have the assault rifle ammo to continue to apply pressure from above. But one simple mistake can change the game, and that's what we're going to be watching closely. Now, though, another team we're watching closely is Pencil Bob, Babel Taco, and Truth, as they're just holding on here. They do have 2 eliminations on the board. They're looking to just drop down to the low ground. So much action taking place around them. They need to be cautious. Pencil Bob looking for any chance that he can to try and take that med kit. He's got the med kit in hand. He's got the heals he needs to get back to a nice, comfortable position. He just needs the time to do it, and this zone is not really giving him that time.
Yeah, and you know what? You really want to be careful right here, especially with where the zone's moving. And we're in this 8th circle. It's kind of going in a downhill manner. Where, you know, so these people in height, they're going to have to focus on making sure they connect and they don't stay too high up, which is exactly what we're seeing right there. See how they utilize their stairs right there? They utilize a little bit of a drop down, while the other 2 players can really look for some frag out moments, which is exactly what's going on. Now, Death and them, they're looking for some strong shots, but we still have Smite, who's on the bottom. Looks like him and Shore are both still alive in this game. But Dev, unfortunately, was eliminated either way. It looks like John, Death, and Straw Hat are kind of pushing down on people, looking for some hefty shots. They really want this game for themselves, Panda. They really do. And I think if they play it smart, we're going to see another Victory Royale in their favor.
Yeah, I definitely see that happening here as these moments continue to dwindle down. You see Mex and Flixie holding on there on the low ground. They're going to be able to heal up, it looks like, and get into a decently healthy position. But as this continues to push down this little cavern here, you're going to see these players begin to struggle, especially for a player like Flixie, who doesn't have a ton of material and is not in zone, but he does end up coming up behind a team and he almost gets an elimination, but it's not going to work out as he gets eliminated himself. Now Mexi all alone on the low ground, 12 builds left to his name as 2 other teams continue to survive.
Yeah, and look at that. John, Death, and Fate still holding the height. Just like I said, they're going to be dominating this game. They're making it their own. And, you know, ultimately, that's going to keep them that first place position because they're not taking anybody for ransom. You know, they're making sure everybody is eliminated and that they win this game. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now as they're still holding that height. But they got to be careful as it doesn't look like any of these walls are theirs. Any of these floors, none of these builds are really theirs. So it could be very easy for someone like Smite, who is a very professional player in this game, to be able to drop somebody down. And that's the last thing you want, especially when you're holding height, when you're having such a great game, is to be dropped down. But it looks like it's just them versus Smite, and they still come on top. with the victory royale.
Wow, Death and team just performing at such an incredible level there in those final moments. And that's why we see them walking away with the victory royale. They continually held the high ground. They did very well at controlling the pressure. I mean, I got to see it again. Let's jump into these replays so we can look at exactly what happened here in game number 3.
So we're already looking first with the team that took over Dirty Docks, but really there's our big boys right there, Death, John, and Fades, the winners of this last game and the game of a few games before. Now Smite, Shorn, Dev, that was also another team that we saw a lot of great action from today, Panda, and another team that I think we really have to look forward to, but still it does not compete with the boys, with the guys that were able to take height today, as Death, Fades, and John are still one of the best teams in this lobby right now.
Yeah, I totally agree. You see Spades controlling the narrative there as he gets that elimination. Max now in this situation by himself. Now it's up to Death versus Spades in this 2v1 situation. They were just relentless, and there was no way that there was going to be a different outcome.
Yeah, no different outcome at all. They knew that this game was theirs. I think the minute that they pulled height there towards that 6th, 7th zone, they were ready. They were ready to dominate and take, the entire lobby for themselves. They sent everybody back. So I'm super excited to see what they do in these next few games, because they still got to hold that momentum. Never know, something could creep up. But either way, we still have a little bit of time before this next game, so we're going to go into a quick break, and then we will be right back to give you all of the Fortnite action.
It is time. We are back after the first half of the PlayVS Cup featuring Fortnite Trios event today. Panda and Bryson bringing you all that action from the first half. Well, guess what? We have all the energy. We're bringing you that action for the second half as well, because so much has happened here in these first couple games. And now let's go ahead and see on the leaderboards who's out on top as a result of these first 3 games.
All right, so we're already looking, we still have Death, FaZe, and John on top by, it looks about 19, 20-ish points here, which is not a crazy amount above. There's still a lot of room for people to catch up with them, but we've seen them already with, 2 victory royales, and look at that. Look at their average right now. Their place average is 2nd place, meaning they are popping off. But that does not mean some of these other players like Smite, Short, and Dev will be able to catch up. What do you think, Panda? What is your predictions with this leaderboard? I mean, tell me what you think.
So I'm going to say this, right? I think that Death, FaZe, and John are going to maintain one of these top 3 spots throughout the rest of this tournament. But every other position here on this leaderboard is up for grabs, because as we dive into the second page here, you will see familiar names like Flixie, Summy, and Mex. You see Shiesty, Zai, and Habits, Kazu, Fishy, and Narwhal, all teams that have done extremely well thus far, and they're looking to just continue to move up the leaderboard. Another team that is looking to move up as well here is going to be Frankie, Palworld, and Casual. Again, our game 1 winners now finding themselves falling short into place 13.
Yeah, and you know what? Like we know, top 12 is what wins money here, and they're right on that threshold. But they're going to have to really step it up these next couple games, and they're going to need another game like they had in that first game, which we know they can do. But regardless of that being said, they still got to keep their momentum, and they got to bring it back to where they were earlier, because we want to see them, play in just a great position right here, and we want to see them move up, because that is a big team. That is a team that we're seeing do very well.
Absolutely, and it's about having high energy going into the later half of this tournament. You've completed 3 games. By this point, you should have figured out every issue you've had leading up to this point. You should have game plan changes already in effect and ready to execute here going into game number 4, and you should have a clear mental state. And I cannot say this enough, especially when it comes to the high school kids and teens out there that are working up through the ranks here. You need to make sure that you maintain a level head. That is the best way to compete in these tournaments if you want to find yourself coming out on top.
Yeah, exactly. You got to keep yourself sane during this. Fortnite is such a mind game, and that's not something a lot of people realize. But there's so much patience that plays, because for that first part of the game, you're really just focusing on getting in. You're not really focusing on fights and stuff like that. So you really have to have that patience. You got to play towards that end game, or else you're not going to be able to have it. But Panda, I think we're about to get into our next game as the players are dropping from the battle bus. Let's get into the action, and let's really dive into what's about to happen here.
Yeah, you already know the battle bus is loaded up, ready to go. We've seen the performances thus far here up through these 3 games. Now it's time to see who's going to be able to execute here in game number 4. Diving in, though, we're going to watch Dev and Smitty. The tale of 2 different drops, with Smitty dropping over here at the radio tower versus Dev on the opposite side of the map going towards Weather Station.
Yeah, what a similar type of drop if you think about it. You have the radio tower and you have the weather station. But, Weather, that is one of the drops that we have seen this season be a dominant drop. If you're able to take that spot for yourself, you're going to be just sitting pretty. And look at that. Looks like they have Caddy and Weather. That is a lot of loot just for the fact that you get a free scar from the NPC up here, and you are able to upgrade just below down at Caddy. So if you have this whole entire spot to yourself, there is so much to play around with. And you know what? I think that's why we're seeing Dev, Smite, and Shore have these hefty end games, because they are coming out on top with their loot pool.
Yeah, look, they've got a good position here, especially looking at the way that they've split Weather Station, Caddy, and the other half of here on this hill. They're going to be able to effectively play out the rest of this game. Now, the question is, though, could they be rotated onto? That is kind of the question here with a drop like this, especially when you're split, because you have teams from Retail Row, you have teams from Misty Meadows, you have teams from Lazy Lake, all that could potentially rotate in your direction depending on the zone. So if you're not careful, you can easily take that split drop that's uncontested, and it can turn into a very heavily contested drop, all in the blink of an eye.
Yeah, and with things like cars in the game, people can just run right in there, especially when you have like the sports car and with those off-road wheels. Someone could just pop out of nowhere in that car and bam, you're in the action now. You're in a fight and you might not have been ready for it. But we're back with our boys, Death, Fades, and John, still in first place and still on no one else at their spot. So having this uncontested, this is big for them. I think this is a reason why we're seeing them succeed so well in these games, because they are not really having any action until the end game. But when they get that end game, they play it for themselves and they play it well.
Yeah, they're definitely doing a really good job of playing this out. You see, Misty Meadows is another one of those POIs that when you have uncontested and you can have full control of it, you should find yourself coming out on top. Personally, I am a caddy corner fan, but more recently, the last few times I've played, I've decided to switch it up to Misty, and I gotta say, as strong as Misty is, it just makes the game that much easier to play out.
Yeah, having Misty there it's crucial for some of these teams. But we're back over with Smite, Shore, and Dev, and it looks like, talking about these rotates, nobody's really rotated their way, but you got to be careful, like you said earlier, especially with the way the zone's pulling. They're on that dead side spot, so we might see some other teams try and utilize that too and come up right behind them. You don't want to get caught right there, especially with people coming right in from retail. That's not too far away, and a lot could change in your game if you are not ready for something like that to happen.
Yeah, look, you need to be ready at all times. Anything goes here in these games, especially for a caddy corner drop, because you have one of the few upgrade NPCs. Another place that you have an upgrade NPC is not anywhere close to Steamy Stack. Actually, I lied there. Craggy Cliffs has an upgrade NPC here too. So the tale of two sides of this map here as we watch it completely unfold, with Truth, Pencil Bob, and Fable Taco walking away with Steamy Stacks to themselves.
Yeah, and having Steamy Stacks to yourself, that's a decent position, especially with a little bit of free rotation there. And, we see the stacks as a spot in the map that kind of like the spires, where that right when you get there, you're able to fly back out. And, that's crucial. That's crucial to a lot of teams, but at the same time, you still got to be careful, because it's not in the mode of like the spire where you can just go straight down. No, you're going to have your glider out for a moment there, and you do not want to be caught with your glider out while another team can focus you, because like we know, when you're in the air like that, there's not a lot you can do to protect yourself.
Yeah, not at all. You need to be cautious of that. And look, that's why I think everybody's talked about launch pads and the lack of mobility recently. But in my opinion, launch pads on this particular map, and with the skill level that we've seen from these players recently, it's tough. It puts you nonstop in a vulnerable spot. That's the last place you want to find yourself, especially here in this situation, as we watch secretly Sunny Boy and Kenny rotate here from the farm. It does look like they're going to be quite a ways away, but fortunate for them, though, they do have quite a bit of time here to begin their rotation. And it looks like a vehicle here to boot.
Yeah, and you know what? The orchard area like they're at it's a good spot to be around, but there is a lot of little small areas that you got to watch out for people rotating around. But it still puts you in that little bit of a better situation as someone that might be in in the actual farm over to the left, or the colossal farms. And right now it looks like they're going to be not really rotating in those areas. They don't want to pick fights, but it looks like we have another car right in their midst, and they got to be careful because they've already dropped one of their players. He dropped out of the car probably to get some more materials, and they do not want him to get left alone, because that could not be good, especially as another team sees a solo by himself running up that hill.
Yeah, look, this is a good situation here for Narwhal, Kaz, and Hufishy, as it looks like they've rotated in the direction of this team. They know that this team is going to be present here, and they need the elimination points to climb up this leaderboard. Now, if they're not careful, though, they could end up finding themselves back in the lobby as Hufishy completely pushes up against Demi. Kaz getting a nice little angle there as well. Hufishy almost overextends, but quickly backs out from the fight. Really smart plays here from these players. Now you see Narwhal just trying to control the fight here. Does almost get tagged up as he exchanges tags there with Astra and gets the full knock. A huge turn of events here for this team. If Shark and Zimmy are not careful, they're quickly going to find themselves eliminated.
Yeah, and you know what? They don't want to get sent back to the lobby right now, especially getting into the second half of this tournament. These games are really crucial. You really need to make sure you're playing out every single game, and especially going up against a team, you know, like Hufishy and them, that's going to be tough, especially when it's a 3v2 situation here, because you've got Narwhal and Kaz, who are extremely good pro players too, and having all three of these guys together, that's a team that's going to dominate, and these players know that. They know how good they are, and look at that. Look how they're just kind of taking this height. They're kind of dominating, taking, you know, Shark. They're making sure that he's not able to get anywhere. That he was trying to heal up, but they're making sure that doesn't happen because they want to finish this fight and they want to finish it fast.
Yeah, and that's why you see Narwhal just getting in there, but oh no, almost ends up resulting in him going down there. So listen, you have to be careful when you're aggressive like that. You're gonna find yourself getting tagged up quite a bit, but fortunate for him though, he is going to have a bit of heals to work with, especially now that he's able to find that med kit and continue to push on. Now you see him getting in the car. Great play. And one thing that I think is underutilized is the vehicles. And when I say underutilize the vehicles, I mean healing in the vehicles, because as you saw there for Narwhal, his team is now driving, rotating, using it for its general purpose, right? But Narwhal is also able to heal up in the same vein. So great job there for identifying that as a team. And that is why they're going to be able to escape Storm. And another team that may not escape Storm is going to be Smite, Shore, and Dev, as they find themselves targeting this team, rotating, but ultimately not in zone yet.
Yeah, but you know what? I think it's a really smart target right here, because for the most part, they're doing this because they know they're at a disadvantage. The being stuck in the storm like this, it is so easy to get held. So if you have someone with the aim like Smite, he is able to lay down shots really quick. So those dudes have to build, and they're not going to want to stick around to get, you know, any health taken off anymore. And that gives them Shore, Smite, and Dev a little bit of an advantage here, because now they don't have to worry about somebody trying to hold them. And that being said, they have officially made themselves in the circle as we are now getting into that second zone.
Yeah, and this zone is going to be important here for positioning. You don't want to find yourself out in the outskirts, because it's less likely that the zone is going to pull out in your favor. So you want to make sure that you're pushing as far in here as you can. This is match 4 here, so we're past the halfway mark as Smite, Shore, and Dev hold on to their position here on the leaderboard.
Yeah, and you know what? Hold on. If they can keep that, they're going to be in a good spot, because they're still in that second place going into this fourth game, going out of the third game. And if they can keep it going, if they can keep that momentum, they know they're going to be still there. But they are not that far behind first. They're only 20 points behind. So as long as they just keep it going, keep it steady, we're going to see them on top too. But let's get back with Hufishy, Kaz, and Narwhal. Still looking for some action. These guys are players that love the action. They didn't get a lot of it last game, and I think they're trying to make up for it now, because they really want to focus on pushing and getting some of these quick eliminations.
Absolutely, and here he is, the legend, folks. Nevify taking this engagement. Does take quite a bit of damage here, so he needs to be careful. He's going to quickly heal up as his team continues to fight, but it's actually going to be Narwhal, Kaz, and Hufishy versus Nevify and team. This could be a tough position, to say the least. It actually looks like there is another team here as well. So these fights are going to ensue. Who will come out on top? That is the question we are waiting to get answered.
Yeah, and you got to be careful, especially in, these second and first zones, when you're trying to get those quick fights in and you're trying to get those quick eliminations. So many other teams are going to be rotating around, and they're going to see that you're weak while you're fighting, and they're going to clean it up. And you do not want to be stuck in that position, because you might think you're on top there, and then bam, your entire game is just wiped out just like that. But now we got the big Nev, Jace, and Taiksu as they're utilizing those peppers to move themselves ahead of circle, because it looks like they're going to have a little bit of a max haul. But talking about movement, the peppers, something we've seen in the past few seasons, but in seasons like this where we really have no other movement, peppers have become so vital. And it takes a lot of skill to be able to use those peppers strategically and use them right.
Yeah, I'm totally going to agree with you here, as we watch them peppers being utilized here pretty early on. And in my opinion, Nevify, Taiksu, and JC, they're probably not wanting to use it at this point in the game, right? But finding themselves so far away from zone especially considering they were in the north part of the map, and now the zone is almost all the way down here in Slurpy Swamp. They're going to have to rotate, and their only option really is to utilize the peppers earlier than expected. But regardless, they are going to be able to find their way over to the zone, as now Edge, Z1, and It's Your Easy Kid are here in Slurpy Swamp, trying to hold it down here and control as much of this building as they can.
Yeah, and you know, it's Slurpy being that POI still in the zone. That's a good spot to kind of base up around because you have so much metal that you're able to replenish. So if you can build in the metal material and still be able to replenish it after, that's certainly ideal, especially if you're just able to do that with any hard mats. And with the amount of heals around them, with the amount of slurp juice, they're kind of sitting pretty. But look at this, you know, Zach is kind of looking around. He's looking around for shots, but we're back with Kaz, Narwhal, and Fishy, who are stuck a little bit in the storm here. They got 3 elims, all in Kaz's favor. But that being said, it looks like they have the health. They're throwing those medkits ahead. That way, right when they get in the zone, they're able to get that health back up. They just got to be careful that nobody sees this because they do not want to get stuck on a focusing end.
Yeah, absolutely. They cannot afford to be held out here in zone. It does look like there could be one other team just south of them. However, if they are smart, they're going to pay attention to any of the players hanging out here on the edge of zone. Kaz is going to be able to get that med kit off, and they're going to have to continue to rotate, but the storm is going to continue to tick away as now another player, Narwhal, actually taking a med kit too. It looks like Who Fishy, though, may end up going down. It's going to be very, very close here as they continue to rotate. And there it is. This other team in Nevify, JC, and Trio, they identify and they understand that there were still players in the storm. So the first thing they're going to think about doing is try to rotate here and identify where those players came in.
Yeah, and they got to be careful there, especially with the storm like this in the third circle. It's taking those 2 ticks. So, you know, Who Fishy, he lost a lot of health fast. And for him to be able to regain that health, he's going to either have to find a quick elimination or he's going to have to find something within, you know, Weeping Woods. Now, we do know a lot about Weeping Woods. It is a campsite. And what do we find in campgrounds, Panda? We find fires, bonfires. And that's a great place to be able to replenish your health as long as you can find it with no one else.
Hey, listen, I thought you were going to say that you're going to find campers. I mean, you're going to find both, right? But one thing I will say is being able to heal up with those campfires are going to provide such crazy advantages, especially when you find yourself just coming out of storm. You're very, very weak, like Narwhal, Kaz, and Who Fishy were. They're going to be able to at least heal up pretty effectively here in this game. Now the focus, though, is on as Edge, Z1, and Your Easy Kid are just looking to hold their position on the edge here. If this zone pulls towards the center or pulls any away from them, they're going to have to then focus on rotating. And because they're on the edge there, it's likely that they're not going to be staying in the same position as Zone 4 begins to show itself.
Now look who we got holding a little bit of height right here. Death, Fades, and John are game leaders right now. They have been dominating through this entire lobby for the past few games. And if we see them do another one right here, then they're going to really be holding that first place. And, you know, they're a team that people know who they are. And like I talked about it before, people see them on this height. And I'm sure people are scared down there. People know they got to be careful. But look, Weeping has been completely cleaned out of trees. So there's no more natural cover. Nowhere to hide. Everybody has to build. Everybody has to use those materials. And they have to use them wisely. And, you know, they can't be they can't use too much of them because they don't want to get stuck in a spot where they run out of mats. Because that being said, with no trees there, it's going to be really hard to replenish your mats.
Yeah, you have to be cautious of the material count here in this game as it continues to dwindle. Fortunately, there for Death, Fades, and John, they identify this, they understand this, and that's why they've been so conservative there with the material that they have. Now you see in the distance, though, another team we've been watching closely in Frankie, Hallworld, and Casual. It looks like they're taking shots off in the distance here as they prepare for Storm Surge, because Surge could become active here at any moment, and if they're not careful and ahead of that damage threshold, they're going to find themselves having to deal with more problems than just positioning in zone.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, you don't want to be stuck with too many issues going on in this endgame, because that's a lot to think about. You know, if you're focusing on rotating, you're focusing on Storm Surge, you're focusing on making sure that, you know, no one else is trying to get their surge off of you. That's a lot to handle in an endgame like this, especially with how chaotic we see these endgames get, because it is so many people, you know, meshed together in such a small area. And that's something you don't see in really in any of the other battle royales. And that's what makes Fortnite one of the greatest games ever made.
Absolutely. Anything goes here in Fortnite. And when you add a dynamic like building to the game, I mean, the control is endless here for these players. But one thing that is not endless is the amount of material and ammunition you have. So you have to be cautious if you're a team like Narwhal, Who Fishy, and Kaz, and how much that you're utilizing here, because there's quite a few material invested already in their position and zone, and this zone can easily pull away from them.
Yeah, and you know what? That's the crazy thing about video games, about Fortnite in general, with battle royales and everything, is the idea of a circle, the idea of the closing zone, and how it is different every single game. So you can't just going into a game and position yourself exactly where you want to be. You got to realize that you have to be on your toes, because that zone could go any way at any moment, and you got to be ready to rotate, because you don't want to be stuck in a spot where everybody else is looking at you and you're not rotating. You're not looking for the right position to be in, because that is how your game is going to end, and it's going to end fast. But still, we got Smites, Shore, and Dev, the team that is in second place right now. They got to make a lot happen so they can get up there in that first. But regardless, this is a lot of action for them, and they're playing this action well. Now, as we know, we're in that 50 Storm Surge. It's the team we're looking at now, Frankie World. They are 262 above. So they got to really play this carefully. They don't really need much surge, but that doesn't mean other people are going to be looking to dive in on them and try and get surge fast.
Yeah, they're definitely going to have to make sure they're paying attention to surge here as this fight continues to press on. Mex, though, taking a lot of damage here as Flixie ends up, it looks like 1 HP in a dream. There it is. Flexi ends up going down. Summy and Mex are just barely alive here and trying to hold on as this team continues to push forward. This is not a position in zone at all that you want to find yourself in a fight, and that is why that fight is ending quickly. This other team identifies this, needs to rotate, as Mex is just trying to heal up. Mex and Summy now not in a healthy position to rotate, as they are the opposite end of where this fifth zone has pooled.
Yeah, and you know what? We got another team right here, FaZe, John, and Death, as they made themselves already into that half and half. So they're kind of sitting pretty right here, just kind of looking around for shots, because people are going to be open. Everybody's rotating. Everybody's trying to get in. And we're going to see the next Storm Surge morning here just in a minute as the next zone is closes. But that being said, a lot of these teams, they've got their tags, they're ready to go, but that doesn't mean they could just get hit with something that they aren't expecting, because there are other people looking around trying to get shots off, and you got to be really careful, because we're seeing other players go down. Look over there, as Window went down, Widow TV went down, we still have Fishy and them. They're still hanging out on that bottom layer, but they're all still on the board. They're all still alive, and they're holding it down as best as possible. But still, look who we got on height. Shore and them trying to make that height for themselves.
Yeah, look at them hold on to the high ground here, as now Smite, Shore, and Dev position themselves to be able to do some big things here in this game. The shots are coming off as Paul World takes a ton of damage. You actually see in the elimination feed, Death actually takes out Summy. Summy and Mex both back in the lobby after Jasty ends up helping with those eliminations. That is a huge turn of events for that team. Now, though, another team just trying to stay alive and do some big things here in the final moments is Narwhal, Who Fishy, and Kaz. They are low ground warriors, to say the least. They know how to convert these players into eliminations for them. Now we just have to see how many eliminations they'll end this game with.
Yeah, exactly, because like we've seen before, they know how to get their elims in the game. Like we saw that first game, they had a 16-17 elimination game, and you know, that's big for players like that, especially to put themselves right in that top 12 position. But that's where they're at right now. They're in that 12th place, and if they want to be able to keep that, they're going to have to really play this game. They're going to have to really hope that they keep this endgame for themselves, because look at that. Look how congested that map is right now. So many people still yet to go down. So this is going to be really, really tough for a lot of these teams.
Yeah, that it is. But look, if you're a team like Death, FaZe, and John, you're just trying to make sure that you maintain the layer to the fullest effect there. And actually, it looks like Kaz, Narwhal, and Who Fishy are going to attempt to go for high ground, but it does result in them losing Kaz. So now Kaz and Narwhal have both gone down, and it's all up to Fishy to clutch up that situation. And it looks like Shore, still being able to maintain the high ground, is going to play the most effective version of the game. John, though, on the low ground there with Death and Fades, still getting shots off, still trying to convert some eliminations, because they only have one elimination on the board, and they know if they want to continue to climb this leaderboard, they're going to need more than just that one.
Yeah, exactly. There's so much going on right now. You hear those shots going off. Multiple people are looking to find some eliminations. Now you have Fishy, who is trying to carry this on his own, but is it going to be enough? Because you have people like Shore, Smite, and Dev that are on the high ground. You still have John and their team. They're all still alive in this board, so you got to be really careful, especially if you're playing as a solo. Everybody wants that Victory Royale. Everybody is playing for that Victory Royale. Now we're seeing on the board, Fades was able to take out Nev. Two great players, two crazy endgames, one crazy endgame that they're in. But regardless, is it going to be enough for some of these players to be able to get those eliminations, get those points that they need to finish off in this game?
Yeah, look, the final moments are here, folks. They are just holding on. The action continues to ensue as Frankie is just down below there. Saw him just for a brief moment. Death, Fades, and John holding on here, as now Casual has gone down to JC. Fable Taco taking Jude out there as well. So much is going on here in the final moments here of this game. Everything is unfolding as Frankie ends up taking out JC. Fishy does officially go down. That means that trio is completely out here at this point in the tournament, or at this point in the game. As the shots continue to ensue, though, the high ground is raining down the pressure. Shore and his team doing everything in their power to just continually apply pressure here to players like Aqua and Leroy. These players are struggling to stay alive here, Bryson.
Yeah, struggling to say the least, but they are still holding their own the best way possible. But you still got to be careful when you have a team like Death, Fades, and John just raining through the lobby right now, still alive, going into that 9th circle too, the final zone, still being able to say the #1 team and the #2 team are both still on the board. They're both all still alive. That's gonna be crazy for this endgame. These are the two battling it out for that first place, Panda. You know, they both really want it. They want it real bad right now.
That they do, man. You see they're fighting to just stay alive here as these teams all converge on one another. The shots are coming off. Now, John, though, with a huge advantage in the inventory there. Not sure if you saw, but he did have the Chug Splash Cannon, and that is a huge thing to have in the inventory. But now, though, it does look like they're actually going to end up going down despite having that in the inventory. Now it's all up to Smite, Shore, and Dev. Will they be able to hold the high ground here? You do see Fades and Death end up going down there in the elimination feed. Now Shore dropping into the box against the final players, getting big tags there on C1. It is all coming down to this final moment, and that is it. Shore, Smite, and Dev walk away with match number 4's Victory Royale.
Wow, Panda. #2 coming in with that Victory Royale. There is a very good chance we're going to see these guys make their way to the #1 place. But we do know that Death, Fades, and John, they still had a great game that game. They made it to the end. So let's go look at the replays and kind of see what we all happened here.
Yeah, absolutely. We got to take a look back at some of this action as Narwhal, that was where he almost got eliminated there, but does get that final elimination in that fight. And this is what is happening, right? These players are all playing so well. They're quickly converting on some of these eliminations, but they also find themselves getting a bit compromised. That's why I believe we haven't seen a Fishy, Kaz, and Narwhal Victory Royale yet, or even a top 3 in a game, just because they have struggled to not only convert on eliminations, but to stay alive much longer than one of those 7th or 8th places as a trio. And that is tough to see here in these games.
Yeah, super tough, super unlucky, because we know those are some phenomenal players, especially with their track record of how they've competed in other tournaments. They really have a good chance to be dominating this lobby, but we still have 2 games left. A lot can happen in these 2 games. Now we're looking at Shore, Smite, and Dev, the team on top right now. They just dominated that lobby right there, and I am super excited to see what the updated leaderboard, when we eventually get it, what it's going to look like.
Well, listen, before we can get you that updated leaderboard, we're going to take a quick break, so make sure to stay tuned as we continue to bring you all of the action here in this Trios event in just a few moments. We are back to the PlayVS Cup featuring Fortnite Trios event here, brought to you by PlayVS. I gotta say, it has been a crazy 4 games thus far, and the action continues to ensue. Looking at the events that have taken place, it's hard to say who's come out on top here as these games continue on.
Yeah, you know what, Panda? We're seeing so much crazy action. I mean, we really thought that John's team, Death, Fades, and John, were really going to hold that first place. But seeing Smite, Shore, and Dev come off with a crazy victory royale while they're in second place, you know, that's not looking so secure for that first place for Fades, Death, and John anymore. So they got to really step it up these next few games. That being said, though,
they have to be cautious. They really have to be careful. Otherwise, they're going to lose their top spot.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that being said, like, you know, these two teams are teams that we're seeing multiple times in that top 3, top 4 situation. Literally the first 2 teams. So they're going to be going head to head for this first place.
Yeah, head to head is right. Looking at the leaderboard that we saw prior to this game, there was quite a bit of room for change, but it looks like that change could have taken place. A victory royale means so much according to points. I mean, you saw it when we talked about the format earlier. There is so much up for grabs as far as points go, just in placement alone. So it's about staying consistent, and I think these teams have done very well at staying consistent. I will give this to Fades, Death, and that team as well. They stayed alive for quite a bit of time there, so I don't think there's a huge difference in the victory royale versus them. However, it still could be enough to sway this leaderboard into Shore's favor.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. I really don't think it's going to put them too far below. It might just put them in a second place, or they might be barely keeping that first place. I'm not totally sure, but to say the least, there's still a lot of action that they're going to have to be able to put forward if they want to be able to certify that first place, because we know that $2,000 in the first place, that's what people want. That's what people want to walk away with. So regardless of, you know, how good they are, they still know that they need to keep their momentum up, because we've got a lot of good players right behind them that are trying to take that spot from them.
Yeah, they're doing a really good job of holding the spot thus far. I think it's going to be interesting in a few moments when we do get to the leaderboard, that there is so much up for grabs, and the way that it was laid out here, as we saw going in, I still think it's anybody's game. Even despite us going through 4 games already, I think this leaderboard can change in an instant. But let's dive into the leaderboards. Let's look at who has come out on top after game number 4.
Now we're already seeing Smite, Shore, and Dev in first place, but they're only up there by 8 points. So if they want to be able to certify and keep that for first place for themselves, they have to be careful. But like we said, Panda, Death, Fades, and John are still holding that. You know, they were at a average of 2 place. Now they're only at an average of 2.50, so barely went behind a little bit. So, you know, they still have a lot of shoes to fill, because look at third place. Pencil Bob, Truth, and Taco are literally close to 70 plus points behind. That is a massive gap, considering the top 2 are only about 8 points behind each other.
Yeah, look, that's what's been going on in these games, and we noticed it yesterday. We noticed it now today. If you're Kaz, Who Fishy, and Narwhal, you know that if you want to climb up into that number 1 rank, you're going to have some big games leading up in these next few, which I obviously know that they have that potential. We just have to see them be able to do it. Now, though, Jolly, Orag, Cozy, Ozzy here in 11th place, just shy there of the top 10, but going down to 20th, that's a big gap. 62 points for 20th place, and then 148 for 11th place. What a difference, to say the least.
Yeah, to say the least, big time. I mean, that difference is huge, Panda, considering that, you know, the top teams are all the way up in the 200s, and we've got, you know, 20th only in 62 points. If they want to do something, if they really want to make themselves get some money today, they're going to have to really deliver some fresh and impressive gameplay, because we only have 2 games left. Now, like we've said multiple times, anything can happen in those 2 games, but you got to have the want for it. You got to want to have the hunger to be able to get in that top 12, because if you don't have that, then you don't have anything else going for you there, because that's what you need. It really all comes down to how much do you want that top 12 placement.
Yeah, and I think these players, they want it, man. They've made it thus far, and I really think they're going to continue to fight for one of those top spots. But I just got word the battle bus is loaded. We are about to dive here into game number 5. This is the last 2 chances for these players to put some points on the board and make an impact here in the PlayVS Cup.
Yeah, exactly. And we're already getting over with, Dev's team. They still have that caddy area all to themselves. And like we talked about, that is such a key spot to get to yourself too. But look at this. Look at who we got in the bottom. Trippy, someone we haven't really seen much today. They've got Sweaty all to themselves. That is a massive POI to be able to take for yourself. But still, going back to Dev, Smite, and Shore, a great spot to be in right now as long as they just are focused on making sure nobody sneaks up on them.
No, absolutely. They are going to make sure that nobody's sneaking around. Fortunately for them, though, they are going to be still able to execute on this split pretty effectively. It does not look like anybody else throughout the tournament has caught on that this split is here and available. And that's why Dev, Smite, and Shore are going to be able to hold on to this. But looking around as we dropped in, there are still so many players spread out across this map. That means a lot less congestion here at the POIs and maybe more of the splits, just like we're seeing here from Smite, Shore, and Dev. Now, though, John, Death, and Fades here, one of those top teams just outside of what looks like another team off in the distance out here in Misty Meadows and looking to just continue that momentum that they've gathered thus far.
Yeah, and you know what? John, Death, and Fades, they know they got to step it up this game because they're right on that threshold of getting back into that first place position. And that's what they want. They don't want to walk away. They're taking a little line from Ricky Bobby and saying, if you ain't first, you last. And they want that first place here. So it's going to be real interesting to see how they play the rest of this game because they're hungry. They're hungry for it, and they're a team that can really get it if they want it. So I'm excited to see, especially as these, top 5 teams go head-to-head here in the end.
Yeah, look, these moments are beginning to dwindle down as Cozy Ozzy gets involved here in a fight. It does look like this engagement is going to begin here just outside of Slurpy Swamp with starts off what looks like to be a 1v1, but quickly is starting to change as the team is all coming together here. Cozy Ozzy looking to just continue to push forward. He needs to be careful, though. If he gets too far into the box, he's not going to be able to stay alive, and there it is. The knock does come out here onto Trey, as now Trey's team is going to struggle to try to get him back up.
Yeah, and you know what? They were able to take the little bit of looking around, and they were able to, use that whole idea that we've gotten back in, season 2 of chapter 2. The whole idea of you can pick people up after you knock them and you can kind of see where everybody else is. It kind of shows the spot where the other team is. That is something that was a big add for Fortnite, for the simple fact that it adds that just little extra factor that even if one of your players gets down, you don't just have the straight chance to get away. You have to realize that they might know where you're at still, and you have to be careful. And that's something that could really end up ruining the end game for people. But what we're looking at right now is Mint is in the spot out here right outside of the Flush Factory where you get a free gold scar. Now that is a great spot to be at. If you're able to take that and Flush Factory, you're able to come out with spazzes, with that epic shotgun, with that gold scar, and even that rift right there, which adds for just an insane amount of rotation.
Yeah, now you see Trey's team looking to potentially pick up his card here as they're pushing over to this other section where he ended up going down. But if they're not careful, the team is still in the area. As they begin to descend here, you see them right there on top of the body still. So if they're not careful, that card is going to cost them the game.
Yeah, exactly. You got to be really careful. Sometimes it's nice to be able to get your teammate back up, but is it worth it always? Other teams are just waiting around the corner, waiting for something to happen, and then they're going to be able to just take you out just like that. So sometimes it's just worth, staying away because that team knows that they're by themselves. They know that there's only 2 of them, and they're going to use that to their advantage.
They are definitely going to use that to their advantage, but a team that has been using a POI to their advantage is John, Death, and Fades. Looking at this loadout, though, I'm actually kind of surprised that they don't have, or John at least, doesn't have much better than what he currently does. You see, he does have a decent amount of material in the inventory. However, with an uncommon version of the makeshift shotgun and then an uncommon makeshift assault rifle, that's not much to work with. Death, however, does have a pretty decent loadout to start. if he can get some upgrades off, he should find himself in a pretty comfortable spot here in the mid and late game.
Yeah, exactly. Now we're back with, the Missy Meadow area. Like we've talked about multiple times, Fades, Death, and John. Our second place certified on leaderboard right now. An amazing team. But like we've talked about, they've got a lot to step up if they want to be able to get that first place. So just considering all things aside and everything that they've been doing, as long as they play this right, we're going to see them have a hefty end game here. But is it always going to be enough? Because there's a few other teams too here that are also making sure they have those hefty end games. Now, that being said, it looks like Scrubberoonie was waiting for that engagement up top, trying to hide a little bit and getting those first few shots off. He knows that this could be an easy engagement for him if he's able to get the finish here, but it's going to be tough. But he gets right in there and gets that knock. Now he's going to do the shakedown while he is looking for Ray's teammates who are just in the midst right around them.
Absolutely. And if you're Rays, man, you are upset. You are climbing that Guardian Tower hoping to rotate, but instead being met by a player just hiding up there waiting to surprise someone. And unfortunately, Rays was the one that was surprised, to say the least. Now, though, it's up to Sub and Dragon to continue surviving as, oh man, the shots are coming off. Sub thought that they didn't see him, but the shots continue to ensue. This player is diving into the box. He does get a nice tag there, 100. He gets the knock on Nico, but it's not going to be enough as Sub ends up going down, and Kaz actually ends up coming behind and cleans it up.
Wow, we got the third-party action coming in right here from the one team that you do not want to be third-party by, because Fishy, Kaz, and Narwhal have been showing us today that they want to dominate this playfield, especially when it comes to these mid-game, early-game fights. That's where we've really been seeing them compete well. They've been going off on these quick elims. They've been taking all these 3v3s for themselves, all these third parties. Now, what we just need to see from them is for that to relay off into this endgame. We need to see them have a solid endgame and be able to keep those placement points going too, because eliminations aren't just going to be enough in a game mode like this.
Not at all. Eliminations are not going to be enough, as you see Narwhal, Kaz, and Fishy just continue to get those eliminations. But if they're not careful, they could find themselves overextending and then back in the lobby. So they need to balance these eliminations with everything else going on. It does look like there's another team to the right. Narwhal, not quite sure if he realizes that they're there. There it is, Dave and Nico holding on for dear life as Nico actually gets a tag there on Narwhal. Narwhal says, you know what, that tag's not going to stop me. They are all pushing up. Very, very smart and good control here from this team. You see Kaz on the other side pressuring from outside the box. Narwhal just trying to get tags from in between. They are doing a very, very good job of honing in around this team and just pressuring them to the center. If they keep this up, they should be able to eliminate these players fairly quickly here in game number 5.
Yeah, and that's what they want to do. They want to get this done fast, considering this first circle is about to be close here, and we're going to be going into seeing where this second circle goes. You don't want to be caught on a rotate with the storm coming while you're still trying to fight. So you want to make this eliminations happen fast, which unfortunately doesn't look like it's happening exactly as fast as we thought. They're still not fully down yet. We still see the other team kind of hiding, but we see a little bit of a split right here. They're not in the same box. And I think that's something that can be an ultimate downfall for a lot of players, is if they don't play straight together. You want to be together, and it looks like they're getting closer to each other. But that being said, if you're not together, it's going to be so easy for you to get taken out. Now look at Narwhal as he completely piece controls, takes that box for his own and puts that cone in there. Nico didn't even know where to go in that position. He just all of a sudden was stuck, and then that was it for him.
Yeah, that's a tough spot to say the least, man. If you're not careful, though, you could end up like Nico back in the lobby, especially when you're going up against a team like Narwhal, Kaz, and Fishy, who are just relentless. They are diving through this lobby, trying to pick up every elimination they can on the way, and it is happening in their favor so far. Now, though, again, they need to be careful. With 5 eliminations on the board, they need to start focusing a little bit more on placement. They have those elimination points there, but if they're not careful, they could end up going back to the lobby before they could pick up some significant placement points. Now, a team that has done well with placement is Shore, Smite, and Dev. You see them up on the high ground here in this engagement, just like they usually are in the end game, and they're just quickly getting the knocks there on OG player. Now it's up to them to get these last 2 players eliminated. You see Shore working really well with his teammate there as this player just begins to continue building up. It does look like he thought he caught that player, but he quickly sneaks away as now Neon on Switch is just looking to completely disengage with a hopfish.
Yeah, but will the hopfish be enough, especially when it kind of has you stuck right there in those little bit of moments where you're jumping up and you're kind of stuck in a lull, and especially if you have a player like Shore with such precise AR aim. Look how he's just waiting to get that shot. He has Neon down to exactly one hit right now, and he knows that, and he doesn't want to let him go. He doesn't want to let him get away, so they're all going to be looking for those quick sprays because it's going to be really easy for them. They know that it's just going to be one simple shot that they have to get off, but if they aren't fast enough, they might end up seeing Neon get away, and that's not what they want. They want to make sure they get all these elims because they're looking for those extra points. But we're looking over at Neon now. He is by himself, only 15 health left, one shot, and he is done. But he's kind of trying to hide a little bit. He knows they're looking around. He knows there's multiple teams around him, and he's got to be careful. Maybe we'll see a little of action of the other two teams fighting each other, and he'll have a second to just get away. But if not, he is not in a great spot.
No, not at all, as he's now a solo player on the low ground or mid ground up on that hill, and Shore, Dev, and Smite are rotating directly to where he is. I'm not sure that they know where he's at. Oh man, maybe they do. And they find him and quickly eliminate him in that box. I'm not sure if they saw him through the builds or what have you, but they quickly got up there and took their shot and got him eliminated. Now, Shore, Dev, and Smite, they look to definitely want to position themselves nicely on this hill, as two other teams have already found their way up close to Weather Station.
Yeah, and you know what? That is a great start for them, especially with how they are holding this first place right now. Having those couple elims off the bat, and then hoping to get some more during this end game with the eliminations, and also with the the points for their placement. That could be big for them, and we could see them really holding this first place. But another team who wants to move up on the leaderboard is Kaz, Who Fishy, and Narwhal, a great team that we've seen today, but they've been lacking a little bit when it comes to the placement points, and they know that, and they're going to take this game for themselves and make sure they put themselves back into a decent spot where they're able to take this last and final game after this one and say, you know what, this is it. Once we take this game, we're going to be in that top 5.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with the performance that John, Death, and Fades already has here in game number 5, they should be able to comfortably hold a top 5 spot regardless of the results here in game number 6. Now, though, listen, anything can change because big games can happen. We saw Narwhal, Kaz, and Who Fishy put up 75 points and not even win the game. So there is so much up for grabs, to say the least, here for these teams. It's all about, will they execute and will they be able to pick up the points while they can?
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? That's really what this game is going to really come down to, is just how is everybody playing this end game and how is everybody looking for their points? You have some teams that are looking a little bit more for the eliminations, and you have some teams who are playing extremely passive, hoping to get as many placement points as possible. Either way, there are a lot of points to go around and a lot of teams that are going to be trying to get this first Victory Royale, because that is so vital when it comes to the point system, because you get so many points if you get a win in a game, and you're also even having those elims. It just adds so much to your game, to where you're at on the leaderboard. And that being said, it looks like Shore, Dev, and Smite are kind of trying to find a position, but they are right next to their big rivals. So we're talking about Death, Fades, and John, the other team that is just right behind them on the leaderboard. So it's going to be very interesting to see if an engagement happens here, because those two teams are really fighting for that first place.
They are genuinely fighting for the opportunity to be in that first place spot. Remember, the difference between first place and second place is quite a bit, with first place being $2,000 per player. So you know that you want to be clamoring and fighting for that first place spot. Now, that's why you see these two teams close by, but it looks like they're both taking it very, very cautiously. The last thing they want to do is give up the spot they have. And I got to say, John, Death, and Fades here, they have a great spot here on the absolute top of this mountain.
Yeah, and you know what? If they can hold this spot, especially with the zone closing, they should easily be able to have fourth circle to their advantage. And that, if they can keep that, then who knows? We could see some luck happen. If they pull that fifth circle, then it is all theirs. But we're back over with Narwhal, Kaz, and Who Fishy, who are dominating another 3v3 right here, taking the entire team out, making it for themselves, and looking for some quick eliminations, because they want those points. They want those points big time, Panda, and that's exactly what they're going to get.
They are. They are going to get these points, and if they're not careful, they're going to end up back in the lobby too. So they have to make sure they are doing this correctly. They're not overextending. Narwhal doing a very, very good job of trying to identify where these players are, but it looks like that player has already rotated, and Narwhal might not be quite aware as of yet. Now you see them deciding, you know what, we're on the low ground. We're probably in the most compromising position here in this zone. We're going to need to start rotating, because the last thing we want to do is get caught off guard by some of these other teams that have already stacked up, set up, and good to go here on top of the hill.
Yeah, exactly. You know, with a zone like this, especially being such a big mountain zone on literally one of the highest mountain in the game, you got to be careful, because you don't want to get stuck in an end where, you know, you're too far in the low ground and you just have no way of making it back up. But look at this, Fade, Death, and John. They have the best position on the map right now. Now, they aren't going to pull an exact half and half, because you want to be on the sides of the circle to get that, but they could pull close to one, and if they do that, they'll be easily able to build out and certify that height for themselves. And if they can keep that height, then we might possibly see them reach back up into that first place today.
Yeah, I definitely see them potentially reaching back into the first place spot. But look, regardless, right, this game is still underway. So much can still take place. We could watch the zone pool completely away from the hill. We can watch these final moving zones go up and down hills, whatever the case may be. If you're one of these players, you're going to want to make sure that you're on a good spot here in zone regardless. Now, unfortunately, there for Luck, it does look like his luck has run out, as he has now been fully eliminated, and there's no way he's going to be able to get back into this game.
Now, Scrubberoonie had a little spot open to his right that he didn't realize, I think, and was able to get someone on top was able to get a few picks off on him. That is not ideal. You know, you don't want to have to use your health in these moments, and he was had to use one of his big shields, and that is just, you know, you want to utilize every single position you have. You want to utilize all the health possible and be able to keep on to that health as you're going into these end games, because these final moving zones that we're about to see, you need to have health on board with you, because you're going to lose it fast. You're going to lose it to Storm. You're going to lose it to other picks, multiple different reasons, and you want to be able to replenish it fast. But let's get back to Fishy, Kaz, and Narwhal. They're kind of, you know, they have this whole little metal base to themselves. Considering where the storm goes, if it pulls their way, they're going to be sitting pretty right now, especially with the amount of ammo they have, the weapons they have. They are ready for an end game. They are ready for an end game, to say the least.
Yeah, they definitely are ready for an end game. Man, I'm excited. You see all of the action already taking place here, and you see the way that Fade's, Death, and John have been able to hold that height position. Ooh, if this zone pulls in their favor in any which way, we could see them completely dominate the rest of game number 5. But before we get there, we got to focus on all the action happening right down low. As you see, teams are on top of teams. Shots are flying in every direction, and it looks like even supply drops might be slipping through some of these builds.
Yeah, it seems like this is the spot where you don't necessarily want to be right now, considering everybody's congested right there. But we still do see a few little rotates as people are making their way around the mountain. Now, look at this. We have that half and half in a kind of lower position off the side of the mountain. But I'm curious to see how John and them play this, because they were in a great spot to kind of look for maybe just building out a little bit and still being able to keep that height. That being said, I think we're going to see some quick engagements right here with Fishy, Kaz, and Narwhal, as they're really looking for those quick eliminations. But at the same time, they're making sure they get themselves forward and stay ahead of the circle.
Yeah, stay ahead of the circle indeed. Looking at this, though, John's looking to keep the high ground here early. He does not have the builds to maintain this, though, so this is going to be interesting to see if they can hold on. They might need a refresh here before they get too far in, and it looks like Casual and Frankie might be that refresh, as John gets some significant tags off here on him early.
Yeah, and you know what? If they get that refresh, that's exactly what they need. But look at this. They're still able to hold this height right for their own. And you know what? Like I've said before, if they keep this height, they're going to make themselves back into that first place. But we still have Smite and Shore and Dev, another phenomenal team that is waiting, and they're going to be holding the best they can. And it looks like Dev is not too far below them, but there's another team that we saw down there. We just saw Casual. Casual is another team that they won that first game of the match, but we kind of see them fall short a little bit on the leaderboard. So they're really trying to step it up. They're really trying to make sure that nobody else takes this game from them, because they want to climb back up. They want to do the best they can.
They definitely do, and I think all these players are just trying to find a position here in this zone as it continues to pull off the hill. And you see actually Narwhal, Kaz, and Hufishy right down there in a bit of a mid-ground position here, or a mid-layer position in all the action that's going on, because this is such a tiered off zone. You see there's so much action taking place on several different elevation points on the map, and bam, John actually ends up taking quite a bit of damage here, and it must have come from Frankie, Casual, and Paul World just there off in the distance. Fortunately for John, though, he is going to be able to get this med kit off and heal up quite fast before Zone 6 starts to pool. Now it does look like they're going to have a bit of a little edge here, but if they're not careful, they could easily end up getting knocked out. And with Storm Surge now being a factor, these players are going to begin to get desperate to get these tags.
Yeah, and you know what? They got to be careful. They know Casual's team is right behind them, and that's a team that's hungry right now to try and move up on the leaderboard, like I said. So they could easily be looking to, take control and take that height from them. But if they're able to still keep that height for themselves, then you know what? They're going to be doing big things. But let's go with Hufishy, Kaz, and Narwhal. They're kind of on a little bit of a lower ground play right here, but such an odd place for the zone to be. No one really wants to be stuck on the lower ground, but people are in kind of this mid-ground lull right here as they're all trying to just rotate around the mountain. But that being said, everybody's using mats. I mean, look at the difference of layers right there, Panda. We have people so far below on the mountain. Well, we have franking them all the way at the top. This is a massive difference in layers.
This is why the game is going to be interesting, folks. This is probably going to be the toughest zone we've watched to date, and this is all taking place here in game number 5. Fades now dropping down, still trying to get shots off, but if they're not careful, they can easily get dropped here. It does look like Casual actually has gone down there, and so has Narwhal. So this could be a turn of events as Nevify and Hufishy also go down here to Smitty and Your Easy Kid. This is a quick turn here for these players, as now Kaz again left alone to survive and try to make some things happen. Big tags off there for Kaz, but it does not look like he's going to be able to convert as another huge tag comes off there. That is a massive play here for the solo player in Kaz.
And you look at Fades, and then they're trying to make sure they keep that height, but a lot of people are looking to contest it. And now we got Kaz down here. Kaz playing by himself, like you said, with 2 elims on the board, but he's got a decent loadout. So if he can play this right, he's going to be looking for a lot of plays right here. And it looks like Fades and them on top are still getting elims as they are raining down fire on other players.
Ooh, and you saw there, Kaz actually ended up exchanging his elimination with a knock, but because his team is out, that point is not going to be able to convert over. Now, though, Fades dropping down just a little bit with Feneric, Eden, and D-Win on the low ground. So much is taking place here. The shots are flying in every direction, as now Eden is looking to execute on one of these eliminations here just down below. He knows that he's got a little bit of control here with D-Win and Feneric. If they can hold on here, they should be able to fight off John and Fades. But one thing I want to say, Zik here is alive and well. He is doing his part to try and stay alive here on the mid-ground position.
Yeah, and you know what? If they can keep that spot there, then they still have a good chance. But with these mountain zones, with how it's pulling right now, Fades, Death, and John, well, Fades and John are in a very good position to be able to keep this game going for themselves. Now, it looks like we have a lot of 2v2 situations down here as we're looking for a little box fight. Now, JC wasn't able to make anything happen, but Taisku is still looking for some hefty shots. He is stuck in the storm. This is going to be difficult for him. He only has a little bit of health left, so he's got to be careful, but he gets taken from the back, and now Fades and John are still holding this height. If they can play this right and play their cards right, then they will easily be able to take home that victory royale, because we are on that final closing zone. There is only 35 seconds left, and then there will be no circle. It'll be only zone. People will be losing health, and now it's really up to Eden, Dwin, and Eric, if they are able to keep the momentum coming, and they're taking out players as we're going down. It looks like we're going into a 3v3 situation right here, Panda, or a 3v2 actually, because we know that, Fades, John, and Death, they've already lost Death in this game. So if they want to keep it going, they got to play it carefully. But look at this. We have a little bit of a medkit play right here. I don't know what's about to happen, Panda.
Eden goes down, and look, if you're on the high ground, if I'm not mistaken, Fades actually has a bit of the heal cannon, the chug cannon there, and he's just up there saying, good for you. I hope you're happy and healthy now, because I get the victory royale as Fades, Death, and John add another victory to their list on the leaderboard.
That I don't even know what to say. What a great little clutch there at the end by Fades. Absolute phenomenal gameplay by these guys. And you know what, Panda? I think this might certify them that first place position on the leaderboard. But let's get into the replays and let's kind of go back and see what happened this game.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into some of this action because, man, oh man, was there action here in Game 5. Starting off with that Slurpee Swamp fight, and it quickly ended there for them as well. Who Fishy and his team, you see them just doing so well to convert on eliminations. But again, they're just not getting the placement points that they need to really go up on the leaderboard. Now, though, you see Fable Taco going down with D-Win here, getting an elimination as well. I mean, just so much continual action. And then the way that these hills continue to change and all the elevation points just changed time over time. It was tough, to say the least, for these players, but naturally the healthier player came out on top, and that healthier player just happened to be Fades in that final ditch effort there with the Chug Cannon, and he was definitely the healthier one in the end of that fight.
Yeah, you know what? Having 2 Chug Cannons there, or having the 1 Chug Cannon, it takes up 2. That is huge, and that's a hard thing to get. You know, those weapons, you're only able to get those through those NPCs, and you have to find a lot of gold to be able to afford those. And you know, this isn't like public matches where your gold just replenishes and you keep having the same exact gold every game. No, you only start out each game with 50 gold, and it's harder to find gold in this competitive format.
No, absolutely it is. But listen, we've got tons of action under our belt. One more game left to go, but we're going to jump into a quick break before we dive in. So make sure to stick around, and we'll be back in just a few. ladies and gentlemen, we are back to the Play versus Cup featuring Fortnite. Again, your host, Life with Panda, here with Unamused Bryson, bringing you all of this action. And all this action has come down to this. It is time for game number 6, the final game of the night here, and the final game of the Play versus Cup. We got to watch all of the action in solos yesterday. Now we're watching all of the trios action unfold today. And man, oh man, has it not disappointed.
Oh, it has not disappointed at all, Panda. We have seen some extreme action. And, we're finally in that last game, the last game of the Cup. It all comes down to this. We have so many players that are playing so close together on the leaderboard, but they got to be careful because just one little misslip, one little slip up, and, they could lose that spot just like that. And, we have some top competitors like, we've got John's team. We've got, other multiple teams such as Death, John's team, and then you have Shore, Dev, teams that are really looking to stay in that first place. But let's get a look at the leaderboard right now, Panda.
Yeah, absolutely, because the top 3 is going to be tight. It's going to be very, very close. Actually, I should say top 2 rather, as 339 points is first place there with Death, Fades, and John. What a performance there for them. But just 11 points behind is Smite, Shore, and Dev. So this can easily change in one team's favor or the other. This is going to be interesting to say the least. Now, though, looking and climbing up the leaderboard just ever so slightly, it actually happens to be Kaz, Fishy, and Narwhal. They have slowly been persistent and just climbed up the leaderboard just a couple times, every time, and they just keep going. Now in third place, though, you have Zik, Your Easy Kid, and Edge. You have fourth, Eden, Feneric, and D-Win. You have Nevify, Taiksu, and Jasty in fifth, and so many more incredible names. They continue to show us why they deserve to be in this top 10, but 11th through 20th is no laughing matter either. If you're able to get into one of these positions as well, you're still doing good. Now, the difference in points, I will say, is massive. You see Frankie, Paul World, and Casual doing a very good job of gathering those placement points, but maybe not securing as many eliminations as they need, which is why they're finding themselves in 11th, but they are 100 points above 20th place. So that is still a great feat to see nonetheless.
Yeah, no, and they're going to still have to keep it up though. They want to still be able to play this game. This is their last game. So if they want to stay in that top 12 to be able to get that money, they're going to have to play it competitively. But we're looking at the top 2 still. Death, Fades, John against Smite, Shore, and Dev. They are so high above. They're almost 100 above third place. So it's going to be really hard for these other teams to reach up to that first, that top 2. It's almost at a point where these other teams are really competing for 3 through 12 because these other guys, they got 1 through 2 on lockdown right now. And I think that's really what we're coming down to. It's going to be a head-to-head show between these two to see which one comes in that first place.
It's going to be exciting to see. Now, the only way I could see somebody from 3rd to 10th making their way into one of those top 2 spots is if 1st and 2nd place fall early. And we know it is Fortnite. Anything can happen here. But with how consistent they've been through these first 5 games, I highly doubt we're going to see some changes there. But I do believe with 1st and 2nd being very close, you could see some action taking place between them. They are going to fight for the opportunity to hold one of those spots. As we dive in, it is time, folks. John, Death, and Fades dropping over to their space in Misty Meadows as secretly Kenny and Sunny Boy are going over near where the grotto used to be on the zip lines.
Yeah, and it looks like they're going to be, rotating a little bit towards that retail spot, just trying to find as much loot as possible. But John, Death, and Fades are first place contesters right now, taking on that Misty Meadows for their own. It looks like a lot of players are really having their own POI to themselves, which is making these end games extremely stacked. Now, we did see Dev just go down at the top, and I think it was something to what was possibly maybe a fall damage, but Kenny was able to get that quick elim off right on him, and you know what? That's a nice little elim to start the game off because you're able to get those few extra points just to start off.
Yeah, look, it's always nice to get a few extra points there early on, but what I will say is for Kenny, secretly, they really haven't got to perform at the level that they're used to, right? They know that they can put more points on the board, but just haven't been able to put as many as they would like here. in these first 5 games. So this is their last chance here, Bryson, to make something happen. But the last chance here also for John, Death, and FaZe to secure that #1 spot.
Yeah, if they want to keep that #1, they got to make sure they get that #1 victory royale, just like the song says, because you got to stay on top on your A game here, especially when you have another team so close behind. Now look at this. We have a little bit of a sneak attack happening as Kenny, Sunny, and Secretly are moving in on Alistar, and they get that quick elim off, but it's not going to be enough for Kenny as he gets shot from the side. He's going to have to be careful with this because they want to still be able to stay alive. They don't want to be able to lose anything here, but they are trying to team wipe right here and take retail for themselves.
Yeah, and it looks like with the one-man down advantage, they could potentially do that, but Secretly overextending a little bit takes a lot of damage. He's going to have to heal up here effectively if he wants to stay alive. The shots are coming out from every direction. He's just trying to execute, and he does. The 3 of them work effectively as a team, and they send that team right back to the lobby.
Yeah, to the lobby they go. Now this is their place. You got Secret, Sunny, and Kenny. Someone we haven't really seen much of today, but they are skilled players, and we know that. And they're making sure, maybe they can have a last leg to climb up on that leaderboard and be able to be in a position where, they could win some money here at the end. Because like I said, it's not going to be crazy hard to get to that top 12, but it's going to be very competitive. So you have to make sure you're playing this final game very strategically. You got to make sure you're playing it right, because if you want to see yourself walking home with money, there can't be any room for mistakes here. It has to be all perfect. You have to play this game to your full and best ability.
You definitely have to be aware of what's going on in this final game, as Dev, Smite, and Shore still have their split to themselves effectively, and they should be able to capitalize on that advantage. Now, though, I will say it does look like they are going to have zone as well, so this really is their game to keep, as both of the top 2 teams are going to be located in the first zone.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting seeing, with some of these teams right here, just how they play this together, because they know that they're the top 2, and they know that they're going to butt heads here in this end game, and they got to be careful about it, because one of them is going to want to make sure they get that first place, and they're going to do anything they can to get it. So you do not want to be the team that gets taken out by the other one. So either way, both these teams, they're going to play on their A game, and to say the least, we're about to see a lot of action here happen. But that doesn't mean some of these other teams that we're seeing in, the top 20 position aren't also trying to fight their way back up there on the leaderboard. And we could see something happen, because Fortnite is anybody's game. Anything could happen here.
Anything goes here in a game of Fortnite, folks, because it is down to the final game, with first and second place being so close together. We're going to be making sure to watch all the action unfold. But for those at home, who are you rooting for? We want to see who you are rooting for here in chat as the games continue. Now, John, Death, and FaZe looking to just to kind of continue to maintain their position, because again, they don't need to rotate. Their position in zone as of right now is really, really good. All that matters now is looting up what they can and continuing on the momentum ride that is their first place spot.
Yeah, and if they stay there, I really have a good feeling that they're going to be able to run with that. But we still have Smite, Shore, and Dev, a phenomenal team right now. And these guys, they're just right behind, and they're going to push forward and try and, get that. But we still have some other teams as Zik, Kid, and Edge. They're about 50 to 60 points behind that second place. But that still doesn't mean they can make their way up there. If they have a phenomenal game here, we could see them grab that second or first place.
Yeah, and look, there's a refresh of the leaderboard just to make sure you guys are aware. Look at that. Again, a dominating lead here for first and second, but third through fifth still up for grabs as well.
Yeah, it really is. And a lot of these teams know that too. So it's going to be super competitive here in this end game, because everybody's trying to get to that top, 10 position, but really the top 12. Either way, the big money comes in on that top 5, and everybody knows that. And that's what they're really fighting for. Regardless, we're going to see a lot of players walk home empty-handed today, and we're going to see a lot of players walk home with some cash. So it's going to be interesting to really just see, who's going to come up on the upside here? What teams are going to really deliver on this final game and make sure that they're the teams that people remember that won money in the PlayVS 2021 Spring Cup?
Yeah, look, they are going to be fighting and clamming for their opportunity. And with the amount of eliminations we know they can put on the board here, Kaz, Too Fishy, and Narwhal, they are going to try and do everything in their power to get these points here today. But I would really like to see them turn around and focus on getting a victory royale here in this game, because this is their final chance to walk away with a victory royale.
Yeah, and if they walk away with that victory royale, I think that's going to certify them in that top 5 position, because we're already seeing them in that 8th spot right now, which is a huge jump for them considering they're all the way up around 12. So if they can keep it there, then they're going to do big things. But we still got Smite, Shore, and Dev making a quick play right here. Hopefully this isn't the end for them. If they can, take this fight for themselves, if they can make sure they win it, then that's going to be great for them. But like we've talked about, this is they got to be careful. But it looks like it's a little bit of a 3v1 situation as they are finally chasing Zoom Guitars, the last player of that team. And it's safe to say that these guys, they're ready. They're ready for this end game. But Panda, look where we're at. We're right by Misty. And you know what team landed Misty? Our first place team. So we might see a little bit of some head-to-head fighting coming here soon if both those teams run into each other.
We definitely could see them go head-to-head, and that would be a sight to see, to say the least. Now, though, you see Dev, Smite, and Shore actually going up against the Raptors here. It does look like they're going to cause a little bit of a ruckus, but nothing that this top team here on the leaderboard can't handle, and they handle that pretty quickly. Now, though, talking about teams that are handling stuff quickly, John, Death, and Fades find them in a fight yet again as they hold a nice little high ground position here over this mountain, and this team begins to push them.
Yeah, exactly. So they got to be careful exactly where they're at, because like you said, they want to hold this positioning. They want to hold that first place position. So they got to make sure nobody kind of scuffs that spot for them. And especially being in a mid of the circle right here, it's going to be really easy for players to run up on him. But look at what they're doing right now. They're connecting to that hill, making sure they're able to hold on to it. So if the zone pulls in that way and they're able to keep holding zone, they're going to be perfect in a great spot. But now we're back with our boys, Kaz, Fishy, and Narwhal, raining down shots. Narwhal was strategically waiting to place those ones. He didn't want to go right into it yet, but he gets that quick pump shot off on somebody. It's going to be a little bit of a battle of low ground versus height, but if he can still solidify that, if he can still get those shots right, I think Narwhal has a good chance of coming out on top here.
He definitely does. You see how quickly he boxes that player, and it just happens to be his teammate there for a second. But still, oh, the shots are coming off. If he is not careful, he's going to take too much damage for him to handle, and that is the last thing he needs to deal with at this point. Too Fishy. Kaz, though, still very, very healthy, and they should be able to execute on this fight pretty quickly. You see Jude, though, still struggling to make their way in. And the more they spend in zone, the more likely they are to get eliminated here. So that's why you see Narwhal just trying to use all of his builds available to push ahead and get out of the storm.
Yeah, and you know what? Storm fights are definitely something you do not want to get a part of, because that adds so much pressure to you, as you're also focusing on, fighting, you're focusing on getting out of the storm, but you're also focusing on, your health is being deteriorated really quick right there. But it looks like Narwhal gets that quick elimination on Scrubbaroonie. Now all they got to do is make sure they can get back over to Kaz and get him up, but they still need to clean up the spot here and make sure that this other team isn't able to take them out. Now it looks like Narwhal is in a decent positioning right here to be able to look for a pick and also be able to hold on to Kaz's life, because Kaz is on his last limb. He's slowly going down from that knock, and they got to make sure they get this finished. But look at that piece control as they were easily able to make that happen for their favor right there.
Yeah, that is a huge turn of events there for him. He is able to survive, and that's going to be the key to all of this, man, is just trying to stay alive as much as you can through these fights. And fortunately for them, they are going to be able to stay alive and continue on. Now, though, it does look like Eden has gone down, so it's all up to D-Win and Feneric here to turn this around as this player just continues to push up against them. Looking up here, though, you see Feneric going up against Smitty. Smitty just trying to replace the floor. It happens, but the shots are now coming up. Feneric not going to let that happen without applying some pressure. But no, Feneric ends up going down. He gets some big tags off D-Win, just trying to get a quick elimination here, potentially maybe getting to his teammate. But now this is a tough spot for them to be in, as Feneric and Eden have both gone down in the final game of the day.
Yeah, and D-Win, he knows that Eric is still alive, and he was able to grab that card right here, but he's got to really try and get away. it might not be fully worth it for him to go for the revive because there's other people around him and they know he's a solo right now. And that's such a tough part about playing game modes like this, is that when you get taken down, it makes it so easy for the team to be able to have that push advantage because they know that you're down a man and it's going to be really easy for them. But look at Smite as he uses that quick edit right there, that little corner edit, and he takes that quick pump shot. Like we've seen, Smite, Dev, and Shore, they are on top, and it looks like he's about to get that revive too, which puts them in a perfect position to keep this game going and possibly move themselves to that first place.
Yeah, doing a good job at that, to say the least. They are holding on to one of those top spots as they quickly eliminate Trey here and keep this momentum going. This is what we've wanted to see. We wanted to see consistency from some of these teams, and Dev, Shore, and Smite are showing it, but Dev actually ends up going down here and fully eliminated, but Smite does not let it settle as he takes Wrecked and sends him back to the lobby in the final game.
Yeah, wow. You know, Smite was not okay with that. He was not okay with his teammate going down, and he showed them exactly what the punishment was going to be, and that was sending them right back to the lobby. Now, hopefully they're able to grab that card so we can see a reboot here pretty soon, but it's going to be tough, especially with so many players in this final coming into this third zone. Getting a reboot off is very hard to do because everybody's in that area, and like we're seeing right now, there are people trying to hold them as they're trying to move their way through the storm.
Yeah, they are. And look, man, if you're Smite and Shore, right, you are stuck in Storm, one team holding you out. You've lost a teammate, and you're just fighting for that top spot. You cannot afford to take any additional chances here in the final game. And that's what we see them doing. We see them with the med kits, backing off, even potentially going far around here into Slurpy Swamp because they know they cannot afford to be held by this team on the outskirts.
Yeah, and that's a really tough spot to be in, especially having to run into the storm. You do not want to get stuck in this spot because it's going to be so easy for another team to take you out. Now, Shore knows if he moves around a little bit to the left, he might be able to get something off, but at the same time, it's not going to happen, and they know that. It looks like they're going to have to be doing a little bit of a revive play. They're going to revive, then get him up, and then revive, and then get him up. That's going to be their only chance of getting back into the circle. Either way, this might be the end for them. This might be the end for them, Panda, but I don't think that means they're not going to walk away with money today because they are still so high up on that leaderboard.
Yeah, this is going to be tough. This is tough to turn around, but still, with the medkit play being able to work out in their favor, they should be able to at least get a bit healthy. And if this other team rotates, they should be able to survive. Now, though, you see we're back at it with Kaz, Who, Fishy, and Narwhal just getting elimination after elimination. And honestly, 3 eliminations is a little low for them in this game, but they are still just putting in the work as big shots come off there from Narwhal in the distance. He punishes those players for trying to get involved, and now Narwhal easily picks up the loot that he rightfully deserves.
Yeah, and you know what? This is what I love to see. I love to see a Narwhal, Kaz, and Hoofishy dominating the Lami right now. But we're back to Shore in Smite as they're really on their last limb right now. This is going to be tough because we're seeing a 2-tick with the Storm, but they do have those medkits. As long as they get those medkits off right in time, right before the 20-second mark, then they're going to be okay. But if they don't, ooh, they might be out of luck here. Regardless, it still looks like this team is trying to hold them as they're trying to get back in, and that's what's making this tough for them. This other team knows how weak they are, and they might even know who they are, and they don't want them to get that first place, Panda, and they're making sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, they're definitely doing everything in their power to try and hold this team out, which is just unfortunate for this team as they are one of the top teams and they're stuck in Storm. Now, though, you see Kazu, Fishy, and Narwhal just continuing to roll through this lobby. They are just relentlessly taking out player after player in their final attempt to climb the leaderboard.
Yeah, and final attempt to say the least. This is literally the last game, and if they want to get up there, they're going to have to do good right here. Now, we have them in an 8th place position going into this game. An 8th place is not too far below to get some extra money here. So if they really want to certify a little bit more cash, they got to make sure they pop off this game. But that's exactly what they're doing. You know, we're not even in the 4th zone yet, and they have 7 eliminations. That's already a hefty game for them. But we're back with Smite and Shore. They were able to move themselves forward and get in, but they are stuck in a little bit of a fight. But we know how these guys play. They're able to play it right, and if they play it right, they're going to win this fight. And I have full faith in them doing that, but it looks like Shore just went down, and I might have spoken just a little bit too soon.
Could be a bit of the caster's curse as Smite just tries to survive, and he does get the knock there on Jazo. Jazo getting punished for attempting to hold them out. He does need to heal up here as quickly as possible, as this other team has now pulled Jazo out. Another big knock here on Aqua, but no, it's not going to be enough, as Smite, Dev, and Shore are done here in this tournament today.
He was just a little too hungry to finish that knock. If he might have possibly waited there, we could have seen something crazy happen. But either way, they had such a good tournament. With how many points they had, they already got some points from this game. I know they're probably still going to be in that top 5 position. So you know what? Good for those guys. Congrats to them. I'm excited to see exactly where you guys are, but you guys played it great today. But let's get back to Narwhal, Kaz, and Ufishy. They are looking for some hefty shots right now because they really want to come away with a lot of these elims, and that's exactly what they're doing. They're W-keying hard right now. Look at how Ufishy just played that. He went right in and took those shots of their own, but he's shaking down to make sure they know where the other players are, and they're not going to let him go anywhere because we're seeing that with Kaz right now.
Ooh, and it looks like they actually, that team that they went up against, I think they were a team that may have been able to slip away, revive, and still end up getting eliminated. So Narwhal, Ufishy, and Kaz just showing them who's boss, as they have eliminated them now twice in this game. But looking at the way that they're going to have to rotate, this is going to be tough. So many teams are going to be pressuring them from afar, as you see Paul World Casual just taking shots there from their high ground position. Ufishy, Kaz, and Narwhal just trying to continue to push in. They do have the Chug Cannon in hand, which is a huge advantage to have. And if it does come out to a heal out for them, this could be what they need to get their first victory royale of the day.
Yeah, and you know what? This first victory royale will be the last victory royale for the day, and that victory royale could put them in a great spot on the leaders board, especially with how, great they're playing this game. They're really pushing forward, because look at this team that's in top place right now. Death, Fades, and John. They only have 2 eliminations on the board compared to, Ufishy's team, who has a mere 7 or 8 eliminations. So, if Ufishy keeps this up, we could see a massive climb on the leaderboard from them.
Yeah, look, it would be great to see if they can make a big comeback, but talking about a team that is going to be securing first place here, it is Death, Fades, and John, and they're doing a good job of it, staying alive here as other teams began to focus here for just a second. It does look like John's going to try to go for high ground, as they do have zone, but if they're not careful, they could easily start becoming targeted here as they're taking high ground a little early. Though it does look like it's going to work out in their favor, as now Narwhal, Kaz, and Ufishy still need to rotate. And it does look like the pepper rotation is going to be the play here, as Narwhal does have 3 peppers in the inventory, just enough to get them in the zone.
And you know what? This is a team that I don't even think they're fully using the peppers just for rotations, but they're using a little bit to WQ too, because they're trying to just get right in and take as many teams out as possible, because they want this game to be over fast and they want it to be over in their favor. But they got to be careful, because we still do have that bow meta going around and people are shooting arrows all around them, so they do not want to get hit, because it just takes 1 arrow from the mechanical bow to end your entire game. And that's something you don't want to be on the receiving end of, Panda.
Not at all, man. The bow is such a power weapon in this season, and it makes you wonder if we're going to see that here in Season 7. But one thing we're not going to see is this primal area being utilized, as Death, John, and Fades just rain down terror from above, getting the elimination there on Kenny. You see them just continuing to control the fight from above. This is a really, really good start for them, but they only have 2 eliminations on the board thus far. This is their chance to truly put some elimination points on the board here, as it looks like they may be able to convert here on Secretly as well. This is, at the very least, is going to be a good refresh for them to have, because 3 eliminations on the board and a refresh here should be able to help them hold on to high ground much longer.
Yeah, if they stay where they're at right now, Panda, they're in just an easy position for success. But we still know we have Narwhal, Kaz, and Ufishy are really hungry for some fights right now, and they're ready to eat, and they're going to be looking for as many eliminations as possible. And that's kind of what they're doing. They're kind of piecing out the area. They're kind of making sure everything's there as they're moving forward with these tarps. But anybody that gets in their way, they are destined to make sure that they are punished for exactly being in that spot at the wrong place at the wrong time, because Narwhal, Kaz, and Ufishy, they play together and they like to frag out, Panda, and we've seen that all day today.
Yeah, they are doing a very, very good job of fragging out, and they are controlling these fights fairly well. This is their point in the games, though, where we've seen them not perform at the same level. But what I've noticed here in this final game is that they're taking it a little bit more seriously. You see they're controlling the zones a little bit more. They're focusing on making sure that they can lead where their position here, their tarp ahead here as the zone continues to pull away from them. But Fades, Death, and John still hold the high ground, but they don't hold a significant high ground spot. It could be very easy for a player to come in and take high ground, which we just saw a player attempt to do, as I believe that was Who Fishy that attempted to take high ground, but it did not work in their favor.
Yeah, you know what? FaZe was saying no to that one. FaZe was using that tac shotgun pretty strategically too. He was using it to make sure he was able to take the walls there, you know, and that's a great meta right now with the tac. The tac is so good when it comes to these box fights because you can take shots on people's walls and grab their walls with it, and you can't really do that with any other shotgun, and I think that's what makes that gun so good. But look at Narwhal as he's starting to frag out and push in to these other players as he's really looking for some hefty eliminations, which he is getting right there as he just takes out Glass Widow. But still, a lot of elims are going down on the board right now, and a lot of these teams are going to have to play this carefully because this is the end right here. This is the end. This is where everything is drawn on the line, and these players, they want to get that win, or they want to get that top 2, top 3 situation so they can be high up on that leaderboard.
Awesome. Now you see John here just continuing to hold forward. Now Narwhal by himself. He is the solo king. We could see a big plays from him, and big shots come out from behind. Now breaking them out. Smart play on his part. But if he's not careful, he could end up in a compromised position. And there it is. Narwhal does go down. And it looks like it is all in here for Fades, Death, and John. Just looking to get another victory royale to add to the books here for them.
But they got to be careful because we've seen it. John and FaZe are taking some hefty damage down there. Well, FaZe even just goes down right now, but Death is on the top, and they still got 7 elims right now. So that's a lot of elims to have. Now, let's talk about Who Fishy. They came in a game late today, and they still played phenomenally, and they had a lot of elims on the board, especially this game. So I still think we're going to see them high on that leaderboard. But still, this game is starting to close right now, and we got everybody in these final moments as the 9th circle, the 9th zone is about to close, and it's going to be completely zoned as every player is on their last limb trying to certify that victory royale.
Yeah, and it looks like Summy there was trying to get some shots off, but it's not going to work out in his favor as Summy is now back in the lobby. Edge, Easy Kid, and Zik just looking to take shots there in the distance. He's doing a very, very good job of controlling the environment, but not of covering his back as he takes a bunch of damage. Death left by himself as Faith and John have both been eliminated. Now he's just looking to kind of maintain his position here on high ground. I don't think teams have realized that he's here, and now he can actually potentially go for a high ground play. And your Easy Kid actually was the one that was able to get the cannon. So that's going to be a huge refresh for them as they hold on. Now JC does go down here, and it looks like it's all up to the medkit play, and a nice medkit play at that, as your Easy Kid is able to heal up there with a chug cannon. The final moments are coming down here. Shots are looking to be thrown, but nothing is going to convert, as there it is. 1v1 up here on the high ground is taking place as there are still players remaining down below. You see Death doing a really good job of controlling the area here. Now it looks like there's some more players dropping in. Death dropping directly on that player, does knock your Easy Kid, gets another elimination, and wins the victory royale as a solo player. 11 eliminations, and match number 6 goes to Death, Fades, and John.
Panda, I'm speechless. I don't even know what to say. You know what? They deserve that first place, and I think it's safe to say that they got that first place. What an end game right there, as Death just held that for his own. But let's go back into the replays and let's see exactly what this final match brought us.
It brought us a lot more action from Narwhal, Kaz, and Who Fishy, but again, not a victory royale from them. They did get quite a few eliminations there, but still not what we want to see. With a placement-heavy tournament like this, you really have to focus on it. Now switching over to Smite, Devin, Shore, though, they did get some early eliminations. However, they ended up getting eliminated fairly early in this matchup. Here is actually the moment where Smite does get a knock there, and then it was all over from there. But someone that did get quite a few knocks was Narwhal, and he actually, it looks like, upset the NPC there as well. You got to be careful in those situations. Those NPCs are feisty, to say the least. And this is the moment where Death was now left alone to handle everything he could in these final moments. And fortunately for him, it did work out in his favor.
Yeah, in his favor, to say the least. That was some impressive high ground play right there, especially as he dropped down and took out all those kids, making that his end game. And look at that. That was a 11 elimination game for them. That is just huge to end the day on. You know, they've had victory royales today, but an 11 elimination victory royale, that's impressive, especially when you're going up against some of the best players in this entire area right now.
I absolutely agree. Well, while we finally tally up those final leaderboards, we're going to jump to a quick break. But before we get you those leaderboards, make sure to stick around. We will be providing all the answers to any of your questions here in just a few moments. So make sure to stay tuned, and we'll be back in just a few. Ladies and gentlemen, the moment you all have been waiting for. It is about time to dive into the leaderboards of the PlayVS Cup featuring Fortnite Trios event. Man, Panda, myself, and Bryson just bringing you what feels like some of the most intense trio games I have watched in recent times. It is so nice to see these caliber players getting to be showcased in a unique and exciting way here on PlayVS. Now it is almost time to see who ended up coming out on top. Bryson, do you have any doubts who could be on top of this leaderboard?
Well, there's no doubt in my mind that John, FaZe, and Death have certified that first place position. But within second place going into that last game, Smite and Shore and Dev, they might have, going out early, they might have left that second place. But either way, I just got word, Panda, that we got the leaderboards. So let's see just what happened with this last game and where we're at just with the finalizing score right here. And going into that first place, like I said, is Death. But Smite, Shore, and Dev were able to still hold that second place by almost over 40 points. That is not what I expected whatsoever. So big props to them. They still were able to stay far enough ahead to keep it, in a good positioning where they could still have that second place.
Man, oh man, that's close, man. So if Zik, Your Easy Kid, and Edge had won that game or even placed a little bit better, they could have easily taken second place. But fortunately for them, they are going to be able to walk away with that. And then you see in fourth, you see Eden, Feneric, and D-Win walking away with 303 points. Nevify, one of those crowd favorites that we've seen a lot of people in chat talk about. Taiksu and Jasty there in fifth. You have Kaz, Who Fishy, and Narwhal in sixth. Scheist, Aziri, and Habits in seventh. Pencil Bob, Truth, Fable Taco in eighth. Frankie, Hall World, and Casual in ninth. And Jolly, Orag, and Cozy Ozzy taking 10th place. That is a big turn there for Jolly and that team. They were definitely trying to make their way into the top 10, and they successfully were able to do that. And then on that final bit of the leaderboard, man, it's crazy to look at 20th and see 92 points versus the 400 plus points that we see in first place. Nevertheless, these teams have competed at such a huge level, and shout out to them. Dragon Sub and Raze right there in 11th. Jazo, Aqua, Leroy in 12th. Flixie, Summy, and Mex in 13th. 14th goes to Mint, 1X, Wrecked, and Trey. Scruba, Rooney, Jude, and Luck in 15th place. 16th going to Kenny, Secretly, and Sunny Boy. 17th going to Smitty, Glass Widow, and Garrison. 18th place going to Xeno 1X, Dave, and Nico. 19th going to Neon on Switch, TV OG Player, and Zoom Guitars. And last but not least on the leaderboard, 20th place going to Sage Raindrop, Dev King Me, and All-Star.
You know what, Panda? Even if you come out in the top 20th part of this game, this tournament, it still doesn't mean anything bad because it took a lot to get here, and every single one of these players deserved a spotlight today. They all played so well, and some of them just, unfortunately, it might have had a little bit less of a good tournament than others, but that's what Fortnite's about. You go down one tournament, you get right back up, and you go dominate in the next one. And I think we're going to see that with a lot of these players. Now, a big honorable mention in my favor was Who Fishy's team. That was a team we saw them not miss the first game today, and they came into the second game, and they still ended up coming in sixth place to end the entire tournament. And you know what? That's an impressive feat, especially since you literally didn't even have a first game. So that just goes to show what type of players these guys are, and some of the competition that they were really going up against and that everybody else was experiencing today.
No, absolutely. And listen, it is no easy feat, to say the least, to even accomplish being here, but to let alone walk away in the money here in the PlayVS Cup featuring Fortnite. But that's going to be all from us. Thank you all so much for tuning in and hanging out with Panda, myself, and Bryson. But until next time, go enjoy some games, and we're excited for all the winners.